All right, good afternoon, everybody. The meeting of the City of Laredo Charter Review Commission, it is right now 5:32, March 26. Let's go ahead and do a quick roll call, if that's okay. I see Andrew Carajas present.
Here.
We have Roque Vela.
Here.
We have Dr. Maria Reyes.
Here.
We have Ms. Cristina Laurel Hale.
Here.
We have myself, Alfonso Ornelas, present. We have Henry Souvenier.
Here.
We have Jack Byam.
Here.
We do have a quorum. The ones that are not present at this time are Maria Benavides.
Tanya.
I'm sorry, yeah, Tanya, what do I say? And that's it, right? Or did I miss?
Mr. Killam.
Mr. Killam, I knew there was someone right here, right? Okay, my bad. All right. Let's go ahead and stand up and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and have a seat. Do we have anybody signed up for a public comment? No one?
No, sir.
That's okay, that's fine. How about the minutes? Has anyone had a chance to review the minutes of November 23rd and of February 22nd?
I skimmed through them. I'll motion to accept.
All right, we have a motion by Roque Avila that we accept the minutes on both of them. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Christina Hale. That means no other discussion. Call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None opposed, with Mr. Cliff Killam abstention and with Tanya Benavides in abstention. So now, let's go ahead and go to our next item, which would be item 5, discussion possible action to amend the city charter.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
We added the whole charter. I think the last meeting, you all wanted to be able to have the ability to jump around if you needed to, so we added everything. We really left off, the last item we addressed was taxation, so we would be on item 12 if everybody wants to start where we left off.
Okay.
And if you all want to move back and forth, that's up to you all.
Chairman?
Yes,
if I
sir,
may?
Mr.
Yes.
Vela. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking through the charter right now, and I appreciate staff doing this. Item number 5, Article 1, I have no changes that I want to make there. I know the article that I do want to make change in is Article 2, but Mr. City ACM, can you, or I guess this case, City Secretary, right? You're wearing 2 hats?
Yeah, it's all good.
Point me to the right direction. Is it mayor election and term that I want to get at to address?
Which,
I want to address the injustice that the council member that I am representing is currently in, considering that he lost almost a year and a half of his term, and as it stands now, that would be considered a full term. And I'd like to address that, but
the terms?
yes. So
That would be under
section
Council
214.
2. It would be 2.01, terms and limits, Section C.
2.01.
And I left the charter there, a copy of it, and a notepad in case y'all want to take notes.
And not to lose your frame of thought, Mr. Vela, I just want the record to reflect that Ms. Benavides has joined us and she is present
So
for this
noted.
discussion.
Thank you.
Afternoon, Ms. Benavides.
Okay, so right now,
That's the section in reference?
yes,
Right.
yes, sir, 2.01C, terms and limits. Right, so the term of a city council member is 4 years. No person shall be elected to city council more than 2 terms. Vacating office.
You said it's Article 2, right, Mr. Vela?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Article
2.01.
2.01, Section C.
And just for the record, I believe the agenda would cover it under Section 6. And just to be clear on the record, Mr. Vela, the only reason I pointed out is just to show we're not going outside of anything that's been posted with 72-hour notice here in front of City Hall. So we're still within items of discussion.
Okay, so City Secretary, I know there's a provision somewhere where a 2-year term would not be counted as a full year term. That's not addressed here in terms and limits.
There is a sentence to that effect. in
Is
this-
there?
Yeah.
I'm reading through it quickly.
If I may, I believe you're referring to the special election one.
Yes.
Where it's less than 2 years and it doesn't. count.
Correct.
More than 2 years does.
Wait, where is, because that'd probably be the best place to make the addition.
It's in the middle of paragraph C, through a
Was it-
special election.
A person who has been elected. So really, so longer than 2 years,
Special
yeah.
election now, but on a standard election like this situation,
Yeah, so,
right, that's what you're looking at.
yeah, so basically it says here, if he's in for, or he or she is serving, is won a special election and the term is less than 2 years, then it won't be counted as a full term.
Right,
So that,
But the sentence 2, that's the one where if it's a regular election, it's irrespective if you serve 1 day or.
yes, okay, so that's how you're okay. I think we can all agree, and I guess we'll find out here in a minute when I make my motion, as to this needs to be addressed. This was an injustice and something that was illegally done during the regular election process. He did lose about 15, 16 months out of his term. I don't think that it's fair or justified for somebody to have gone through all of this and not get the ability to run for 2 more full terms. My motion, and we can have this discussion after I make my motion, Mr. Chairman. My motion is to direct the city secretary to bring forth a charter amendment addressing an election won by a city council member that was circumcised by illegal voter fraud. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I said it sounded painful, but.
I didn't want to use that word, but it's the first that came to my mind.
I know what
Well,
Yes, sir.
so that's the motion?
I believe
Yes,
that's
sir.
a motion, so I guess, does anybody have a question regarding the motion, or is there a second on that motion?
May I have a clarification?
Yes, sir.
Would you possibly want, I'm sorry,
No, you go ahead.
would you possibly want it to be more general, like what, because of a election contest? Maybe not just election contest.
Election
based on-
fraud, because,
Election
I
contest.
think a contest, because you're correct, because this was a contest and it went, everywhere.
That was subsequent.
and a contest would address all issues
Yeah,
of fraud to malfeasance.
I'm okay with that, because that would leave it open-ended enough to where if this happens again, we won't have to possibly not have to come back and address the charter again, so I'm
Right,
perfectly
in other
okay
words,
with that.
something general.
Yes, I mean, if you guys are okay with that, it
Election
takes,
subsequently overturned, was the election
the
overturned?
results, yes, sir, the results were overturned.
Were overturned?
Yes.
Is that correct? Am I wording that correctly?
No,
Yeah, it's your motion, but I was
No,
just
no,
thinking.
no, I'm not asking for that. I'm asking what happened. Was it overturned, legally speaking?
it's because that's kind of
The
broad,
votes
Mr.
were-
Chardonnay. I'll give you my humble, they found there was fraud, and that fraud was enough to overturn that
Yes.
election. So it's
Right.
kind of loaded. You could find fraud, and it's still not enough to overturn it, but when it was so close, it was 12 or
I think it
something.
was 6 votes.
6, so right at 7, the magic.
But my point is that it was overturned. If we want to cover this for future,
Agreed.
I got
we're
you.
using the word overturned because it covers a various number of situations that may
Agreed.
occur. And therefore, we don't have to say specifically related to voter fraud, because then the next time it was not related to voter fraud, and yet it was still
we are again.
overturned. So the idea is not to put it in, so my question to the staff was it technically, was that what happened? Was it overturned?
The results were overturned, but if I may, I think that it wouldn't encompass every situation, because what happened was, Ms. Campos Rodriguez was sworn in, and then there was a stay, so she was in place. But what if, there's a different situation where the incumbent, remains, and that's the stay, but the other person should win, and vice versa. So I'm not sure if overturning would cover all contingencies. It may only cover half of the contingencies, that's all I'm saying.
Can I make a suggestion? Wouldn't it be easier just to say that a person who has served or just taking out the resigned and leaving, that's the only thing that would be considered a full term, like resigned or recall or something that was not was involuntary would be different, because I think that's just easier than clarifying what would consider a full term as opposed to what wouldn't, because there's probably so many possibilities.
Yeah, because I'll give you an example. What if we do a canvas of the vote and the machine was off, the canvas turned out, so that goes, okay, I won, and because there was that, I'm entitled to one more term also. Wait, hang on. Now we're playing with an extension here.
Yeah.
I know what you're trying to take care of, Mr. Vela, going, hey, that wasn't right, and now he's coming in with so little time left, right? How do you make up for that amount of time?
Yeah, well, I mean, if it was 2 months, then I think everybody could live with that, even the
Right.
council member. But we're talking about 16 months, it's almost a year and a half.
Yeah, but now in the discussion, this discussion that we've had here, if maybe we go to something more specific in terms of the term that's the reason for their not being there, because if we do make it too general, I can now just see the opposite occurring. Everybody using this as a loophole
Yeah.
to claim they need to run a third term because it's just so general.
And on top of that, when the constituents are voting on it, they're going to look at it a little bit differently than instead of us just trying to right or wrong.
I think we need to be careful how we word that.
I agree, which is why I didn't want to put a wording out there. I wanted to direct the city attorney, put something legally, just basically give him a direction as to what we wanted, and then him come back with the wording that makes sense that we can all agree on.
I agree. I don't think we should craft it right now, but
You
I
just
wanna
see me
move-
interrupt you guys just so I could perfect the record. You have Mr. Vela's point, we have Mr. Souvenir that is responding towards that. So, just to be clear, then Mr. Vela, would it be instead not a motion necessarily, but a direction to action
Yes.
at this time? And then we're gonna come visit that.
Correct. So,
Okay.
so what I want, and the reason I wanted to address this now is because I knew it was going to be a delicate situation. So I didn't want to, at our last meeting, talk about this and us not being able to come up with the verbiage that we're okay with and just giving him a directive and then never seeing it again before it goes to city council.
So, Mr. Vela, would it be fair to say that your motion is to direct the city attorney's office to review this item so it could be presented to the charter review for?
To provide options,
More specifically, yes.
provide options for your
to
consideration.
move to direct the city attorney to craft and or bring options to the committee at our next meeting.
Perfect. So we have a motion by Roque Vela. Do we have a second? We have a second by Henry Souvenir. Do we have any discussion? If not, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? None opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir, Mr. Vela. With that, I believe the last point that was brought up from Mr. Valdez is to go to section 12. That's where we last let off. Does
In
the
the
com-
agenda, it's section 12, but it will be Article 8.
Okay. Does the committee feel that that should be our next point, or sir?
Yes,
How do you get through the-
Yes, sir, Mr. Souvenir.
I just want some clarification. You had neatly cut it up into sections. So what was this meeting gonna be covering? Section what through what?
This will be discussion of possible action to amend the city charter, Article 8, franchises, public utilities, and municipal-owned enterprises. That would be Section 8 of the charter. That's where we left off last. We finished 7, and this is where we're starting.
Right, but remember last time, we had a range, we covered articles
Oh.
X through Y.
What's the
and you
goal?
had-
Our timing should be good? Is that what you're- Yes,
I'm thinking if we can get through Article
Sure.
10 today, because I know 11 is very long,
Okay.
several sections, but we'll get as far as we can.
Articles-
Hopefully, we can get as close to the end, that way we can go back and start looking at the areas you all wanted to identify.
So the goal should
changes
be
in.
to get through articles 8 through 10.
Hopefully, yes, that's the goal for today. We can get farther, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if we're good?
Yes, sir. I believe we are good. Committee? It looks like we are. Let's go ahead and then go with that one.
Thank you.
Okay, Article 8, franchises, public utilities, and municipal-owned enterprises, Section 8.01, inalienability of public property, the right of use of the public streets, highways, byways, sidewalks, alleys, parks, public squares, public places, and other public facilities of the city is hereby declared to be inalienable by the city except by ordinance, not in conflict with the provisions of this charter. No act or omission by the city council or any officer or agent of the city shall be construed to grant, renew, extend, or amend by estoppel or indirection any right, franchises, or easements affecting said public streets, highways, byways, sidewalks, alleys, parks, public squares, public spaces, other public facilities, and other real property.
Is everybody okay with that? Let's go ahead and go to the next one, Ms. Navarro.
Section 8.02, power of grant franchise. The council shall have the power by ordinance to grant, renew, and extend all franchises of all public utilities of every character operating within the city and with consent of the franchise holder to amend the same. No franchise shall be granted for an indeterminate term, and no franchise shall be granted for a term of more than 25 years.
No questions? Let's go ahead and go to the next one, Ms. Navarro.
Section 8.03, ordinance granting franchise. Every ordinance granting, renewing, extending, or amending a public utility franchise shall be read at least 3 regular meetings of the council and shall not be finally acted upon until 30 days after the first readings thereof.
I just
Yes, sir,
have
Mr.
a
Villa.
question.
Yes, sir.
Is there a purpose for 3 meetings? That sounds a little long. What's the logic behind that? That's just the way it's been?
No, I'm pretty sure it allows for public engagement.
Yeah, but usually it's 2. You have a reading and then you have a final reading. There's not a third. And mind you, this
Yeah, but
could be
this
over a
is-
month and a half. And that's when somebody's in a hurry to provide a service, a month and a half sitting around waiting for council. And that's assuming there's no breaks.
I think because it's a franchise utility, it's more delicate, and so they want to make sure that the notices are given out. I want to say that's the reasoning. I really don't know, it's just my opinion.
It is for that reason.
Very good. Just a question.
Of course, Mr. Villa, of course. With that, we could move on.
Within 5 days following each of the 3 readings of the ordinance, the full text thereof shall be published one time in some newspaper of general circulation of the city, and the expense of such publication shall be borne by the prospective franchise holder. No such ordinance shall become effective until the expiration of 60 days following the date of its final adoption.
Any discussions? Go ahead.
Section 8.04, transfer of franchise. No franchise shall be transferred by the holder thereof by ordinance.
Discussion? Go ahead.
Section 8.05, regulation of franchise. Every grant, renewal, extension, or amendment of a franchise or not provided in the granting ordinance is subject to the right of the council to, 1, forfeit the franchise at any time for failure of the franchisee to comply with the terms of the franchise after a due process hearing. Number 2, impose reasonable regulations to ensure safe, efficient, and continuous service to the public. 3, require such expansion and extension of plants and facilities as are necessary to provide adequate service to the public. 4, require every franchisee to furnish to the city without cost to the city full information regarding the location, character, extent, and condition of all facilities of such franchisee in, over and under the streets, alleys, and other public property of the city, and to regulate and control the location, relocation, and removal of such facilities. 5, collect from every franchisee operating in the city its fair and just proportion of the expense of excavating, grading, paving, repaving, constructing, draining, repairing, maintaining, lighting, sweeping, and sprinkling such portions of alleys, bridges, culverts, viaducts, and other public places and ways of the city as may be occupied or used in a whole or in part by such franchisee, or to compel such franchisee to perform at his own expense, is just a share of such excavating, grading, paving, repaving, constructing, draining, repairing, maintaining, lighting, sweeping, and sprinkling. Number 6, require every franchisee to allow other franchisees to use of his tracks, poles, wires, pipes, or other facilities, including bridges and viaducts, whenever the council, after notice and hearing, finds such use to be in public interest, provided council shall fix reasonable rental to be paid to the owner of the franchisee of the facility for such use. 7A, prescribe the form of accounts kept by every franchisee. B, examine and audit at the time of the of the accounts and records of any franchisee. C, require reports in such form and frequency as prescribed by council. 8, to require and collect any compensation as allowed by law. And number 9, require such franchisee who request an increase in rates, charges, or fares to reimburse the city for reasonable expenses incurred in employing rate consultants to conduct investigations, present evidence, and advise the council on such requested increase.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Sune, yes, sir.
So I shouldn't assume this, so I'll say it out loud. The organization who best knows whether any adjustments need to be made to any of these franchise regulations or the governance of regulations or utilities is the city itself that has to enter into these contracts with these. So I'm assuming that the city knows that the city charter commission is meeting, and that if they have anything that they need to address and bring to our attention, it's going to be brought to our attention, and that we won't hear about it after the fact saying, why didn't the city charter commission do X or Y?
Most directors have been notified, and so if they have any concerns, I've asked them to either direct them to me so I can bring them to you all. I have not received anything right now, so I assume they're okay with the language. But again, we're gonna be reviewing again the next couple of meetings, the whole charter, so in case they do have some changes,
This
I'll
is the
make
time
sure
to
that you guys.
speak up or forever hold, or hold a peace for 2 years,
Yeah.
whatever time it is.
So we'll make sure that you guys get information ahead of time.
I would say if anybody wanted to make any changes to this, it'd be the franchisees. They're the ones that are really held
Yeah.
over a barrel with these. So, I mean, that would probably be the best thing to, if anybody out there that does business with the
It's true,
city.
it cuts both ways.
Yes.
With that, go ahead, Ms. Navarro, with the next one.
Section 8.06, water, gas, electricity, and other essential services. The city may provide its inhabitants with water, gas, electricity, and other essential services as may be determined by council. The council shall have the power to construct or purchase facilities to provide these services and to regulate and prescribe the rates and terms for such services. The city may contract with public or private companies to provide the city and its inhabitants with water, gas, electricity, and other essential services. The council shall have the power to regulate and prescribe the rates and terms for these services.
Any discussion?
I do have a question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Carranco.
It's actually more just language. The city may provide its inhabitants. Why is that a subjunctive and not a definite? So is it the city may as opposed to city shall?
Because some cities make it mandatory, San Antonio, they negotiate for electricity, so you don't fight with all the different companies, there is only one, they do it as one big broad.
Okay.
And that's not just for transmission, that's also providing services, so sometimes you'll run into stuff. Because remember when we privatized too, the water plant?
I was just gonna mention that, I guess this is just to cover everything, all utilities, but we don't provide gas, we don't do electricity. But in the future, you never know. And so I think they were just trying to cover everything, so that's why it says we may.
Shall
Yeah,
versus mandatory.
I think that's the reason they have it here.
And also, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Vela.
There's nothing saying in the future that the county won't be providing water to people within the city limits as well, and the secondary water source. Like that water that's in the ground, which is really where our secondary water source is, if you ask me. But I got something else just something crazy out there, just throwing stuff out there, right?
Yes, sir, Mr. Vela.
We've all every day or every year feel like our water rates just continue to increase, and seeing no real investment back into the infrastructure, not to the amount that we'd like to. And most people don't understand just how enormous that enterprise fund, that utilities enterprise fund is enormous. And somehow it's never enough. And a lot of that is just, and I've kind of made this very evident in our last meeting. That's just a lot of fiscal responsibility in the city government. And I think that's just government in general. I'm not trying to, just focus on just our city council in specific. But anyway, my point is, what do we think about capping the city council's ability to raise rates at a certain percentage every year? And if they want to go up over that in a certain year, they go to an election and tell us why. What are you putting that money into? Just throwing it out there. I'm not making a motion. I just want maybe some discussion as to what you guys think about that. It's aggressive.
So why don't we take it just as if it's okay, Mr. Vela, as a discussion, before it is a motion and asking for a second, does anybody have any thoughts regarding that?
I like the idea of discussion,
Well, okay, thank you, Dr. Reyes.
no motion.
So basically, what I'm suggesting is, we cap it at a 2% every year. That's the max, that they can go up every year on our water rates. And if they want to go up more than 2%, for bonds or et cetera, whatever it is, then they have to bring it to a vote to the people saying, this is how, like a bond sale, that's similar to what a school district does. Says, okay, this is what we're doing with this money. This is why, and this is where it's gonna go. So we hold the city council accountable to ensuring that it gets invested back into our utilities department, as opposed to right now where it just gets raided left and right for different uses.
Well, if I could just be devil's advocate, playing the other side, they do have to announce when there is going to be a rate change. They do have to publish it. They already have to explain where that comes from. And I think when you start messing with someone's ability, what if there's an emergency? We lost our plant over there and it has to come now. We are in one of those type of situations. I don't think we should just take away their ability to react as is.
We have rather large reserve funds that we could tap into that, and there's other areas that it's a $900 million budget, although I understand what you're saying, that would be a crisis. And there's stipulations.
And how about a good crisis, Mr. Vela? All of a sudden, the population changed by 1,000%. We got 10 times growth in 1 month. Our water structure is going to be too low to handle that. They're going to have to start addressing.
Developers are the ones that pay for the infrastructure. They just say we have 10,000 more houses being built.
You're talking about transmission. I'm talking about getting the water rights. First, you have to get water rights, the acres, and we do have future ones. Then we have to have the plant that can actually filter it, get it into quality standards, and then the developers are gonna go, okay, I'll get you that artery to get it into my subdivision.
Yeah, well, we have substantial water rights, and then BECO is set up to, I think it's like to treat 90 million gallons a day, and I think right now it's treating like 5 million. So there's plenty of.
We're also having trouble with that pump that was done back then.
Yes,
It
we are,
was not the original one, and we're dealing with those consequences. We already drew bond money for that, and that money's gone. That bullet left that barrel.
If I may just intervene between y'all's debate, which I am enjoying immensely, but I have some
Dr.
questions.
Reyes, yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Mr. Valdez, you said the water utilities is privatized.
No.
No, it's not privatized right now.
Gas and electricity.
Okay.
It once
And-
was back in
and
the
way
day with
rates-
Nestle.
The way that rates work is that right now all utilities pass through the charges to the consumer. I do like the idea of controlling. I think setting a control mechanism for how high it's going to be, especially because water is going to become gold in very short term. And there's already mechanisms in the background taking place of who's gonna sell water to who, right? So I like that idea, but I do believe we need to discuss this and in more in-depth before we make a decision. Because regardless of water rights, regardless of putting it out for a vote gives us time to breathe and think through any type of infrastructure we may want to build on water. And it may actually invite people to comment, especially because they're gonna need to engage very soon in the future with the shortage of our water.
Dr. Reyes, if I may, that's what we're doing. We're having discussion right now.
No, yeah, but I mean, I am agreeing with you with the discussion, but let's not settle into
A motion.
no decision or yes decision, because I do like the idea of a stoppage mechanism. I love that, by the way.
Mr. Vela, oh, I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
Mr.
I was just going to ask for maybe
Fine.
an example or two of fiscal irresponsibility in this regard.
You read my mind. That's exactly.
You had mentioned the word that the funds
Rated.
were rated for purposes other than what was
I'll give you one example, and I wouldn't characterize this as fiscal irresponsibility, but I'm just giving you an example of how easily it is to go in there and manipulate that. So the last time, I think it was my third year in council, we went and we sold $10 million in bonds against the utilities department for street paving. And the way that we justified that was every time a water line was replaced, utilities would go in there, tear up the streets, and then Public Works had to go in there and replace it. So there's a lot of different ways for you to be able to go in there and use that money and manipulate it for something else that's not necessarily for utilities. Same thing with the
Using it for
bridge.
street paving versus water, in other words, the drainage.
Although in this case, I think, we very much needed the $10 million for street paving. But there's other ways. That's just one example of how you can go in there and grab that money to use
Got
it
it.
for something else.
Thank you. So what, sorry, remind us again, what direction, it's not a motion, but what direction are you moving?
I see an opportunity here. I mean,
I like what you're saying, I want to understand it
I'm
better.
spitballing stuff here. I mean, we could put 2%, and we don't have to make a decision right now. I mean, I'm sure after this, there's probably gonna be some council members freaking out, and staff will come back with, okay, these are the numbers, and there's a lot of questions. We need to ask exactly how much money utilities is bringing in now. I guess it's somewhere in the $400 million a year. Maybe I'm short, maybe I'm high, I don't know. But it's a bunch of money that's out there. So how much are we comfortable with capping it? And I don't remember, what was the rate increase this year? Do we know off the top of our head? No? And by the way, there's already built-in rate increases for the next 3, 4, 5 years, and we wouldn't be able to touch that. But after that, then we'd have, this would kick in.
That it was over 100 and something million, no? That's why all the rate increases are coming up.
Oh, I'm sure it's way more over $100 million.
No, it was like 150, I want
Was
to
it?
say. Like, that was last year's budget that I remember.
I mean, the
For all the
general.
infrastructure that's coming up, and so I think they want to do a
Oh,
new
you're talking
rates.
about the bond sale?
The bond
The
sale.
bond sale, yes. I was talking about the money coming in. Yeah, the bond sale is probably about $100 million. But again, I mean, what exactly is that going to? They say utilities, but.
If I may, Mr. Vela, that actually might have implications into future bond, because you're going, okay, you already have a cap, Laredo, we're not gonna give you any money for any water.
Yes, sir.
There's no way you could come back and cover our,
we would not be able to touch any programmed water rate increases that are already there. This would happen after that.
but I guess my counter would be, it can into the future.
Yeah.
So in the future, let's say it does happen, but City of Laredo, you're special, you do not have the ability to cover these expenses.
Well,
What if Dr. Reyes is correct and it becomes like gold, and it is now very expensive,
yeah,
and your
100%.
2% does not
And
cover that?
and I think we can all agree that if the city council were to say, hey, we want to go out there and we want to sell $100 million of bonds to actually find a secondary water source instead of just talking about it and it'd be a political punchline every 2 years, and they put it on the ballot and say, this is what we're setting money for, we're gonna go get a secondary water source. Tell me who's not gonna vote for that? Whereas opposed to right now, it's just like, yeah, it's in there, just so we can get excited about it and talk about it, but they're not really doing it. That's just the reality of it.
If there is no other, my personal concern is, I've seen the city struggle where they're trying to keep up with the equipment as is. I'll give you an example. The valves have to be turned, and they have to, or else they won't work like at your house if you let them sit. And we've seen where we've lost one of our tanks. North was fine. We have redundancy systems. The south doesn't. They were without water for a long time. I would hate to see someone or something affect the south that's more susceptible
I agree.
to something like that.
The valves being turned has nothing to do with money, though. That's just.
It does in this aspect. You need staff to be doing it. We have a great plan. They've spent a lot of money,
Oh,
and
yeah,
now
they're ready to spend a lot of
and
money.
now to implement it is when they come up against it. Now, do we have the staff? Do we have people dedicated that could just do that? They cannot do anything else, and they're up against that situation.
No, I'm not suggesting that we cut the budget as it is right now. I'm just suggesting.
The future
we
growth.
put a cap on the rate increases, not the budget increase. I mean, if we have 10,000 more houses and it goes from, 400 million now to 430 million, that's not gonna stop that. I'm talking about just rate increases, not budget increases.
Utility rate increases.
Utility rate increase.
Yeah,
And you can even go into trash too, because if you look at our bill, it's not even so much water, it's the what's the other fee? There's like 4 fees on there. There's a stormwater fee, there's
Yeah.
a water fee, and then there's,
Right.
Garbage, sewage, and, yeah.
Can we, then perhaps call
It's gonna
for
be this, yes.
just, getting some research on how other localities of similar size, similar
yeah, that's a great
budget,
idea, yeah.
how they handle rate increases, or even if there's like a model city that we are interested in looking at, even if we don't match up on demographics, so we can figure out what other places look like.
Yeah, no, yes, I think that's the best thing to do with
Mr. Vela, and then I'll recognize Mr. Valdez.
Yeah, sorry. Mr.
No, no, it's
Okay. Is to, obviously make an informed decision. I'm just really want to make sure that we're investing this money and getting the most out of it, making sure that it's going where it needs to go, because water is, I mean, if you look around, and I know a lot of us talk about the Rio Grande being dry and just kind of, not abandoning it, but not continue to invest in it. I'm not suggesting that we make that first priority either, because the secondary water source, I think, is absolutely key.
Right.
But we're so much more established in some other communities that don't have nothing flowing right behind us, right? So there's opportunities around us. There's more opportunities around us with water in the ground than we think, and it's closer than we think. But we just continue to just tell people what they want to hear and talk about a secondary water source. Talk about putting $1 billion into our water infrastructure, which I'm not suggesting that wouldn't be great. Yeah, it'd be great, but have 2 water lines in every single that ridiculous redundancy. That would be great, but is that really what we want to do? Like, are we really okay with that, and just continue to just talk about secondary water sources instead of making it a real priority?
So,
Mr. Suni, and then Mr. Ryan, please.
your discussion raises a question that I have in the back of my mind every so often when I'm going through this, and I'm asking myself, what are other cities, what are other communities doing? Is it out of the reach of the commission to maybe request a special session with a representative from TML, let's say, for example, who would have an idea about what other communities are doing, and bring them here for an afternoon just to meet with us, and we would specifically write a few questions related to that? They'd have the idea of generalities in there. I know, for example, the information that Ms. Hale sent us regarding
The revision,
The-
the Constitution. the
yes,
charter.
exactly.
Yes.
It had some really excellent examples in there. I don't know if, who put it together, but it said 40% of the cities, that TML put it together, right? 40% of the cities do this, 60% of this. They are the experts. Maybe they can answer some of those questions of us. Just, I don't know if it's within our purview to request that, but would that be something that this group would be agreeable to?
Absolutely.
I'm not asking to come for a 2-day period. I know that it has a cost to it, but how about an afternoon like this, where we purposely take time to write those questions that are in our mind about what other communities are doing?
Could I just, well, we saw Mr.
So my thought,
I'm sorry.
yeah, that was it.
Yeah, I was, the thought on my mind was, I'd be interested to know what other sorts of mechanisms other localities have in place to address this problem of fiscal irresponsibility, other than a cap. Not that a cap is a bad idea, but it doesn't seem to reach the root of the problem. It just makes it less.
Yeah, I like where you're going.
It just makes it less. And so, maybe there are other methods other than a cap, out of curiosity.
If I could join Jack, my only concern would be if we're doing a charter revision versus a policy, we're not trying to jump and become super councilmen, where we're gonna write a constitution that's gonna just keep the future within these term limits or within this, just like the US Constitution was not made to address future, port fees or none of this. It was kind of left, okay, this body is gonna address it. Maybe we leave it just as is, as that charter, because we will have to present this eventually to the council and get it past the council if they want to do it, and it may or may not be something that's of interest to them. Did anybody else? Yeah, I see Mr. Carranco and then Dr. Reyes afterwards, yes.
To echo Mr. Savanier's point, I would very much enjoy hearing what the Texas Municipal League may be able to answer some of our questions. They're very reputable, and frankly, as much experience we may have in living in the city and operating here, and that's the highest qualification of any city is living here, it'd be nice to know what other cities do from a governmental perspective, from an association that specializes in things of that nature.
Thank you. Dr. Reyes?
I was just going to say what he said. I am on board with having a representative of the league, and it could be virtual as well. We don't have to invite them. So I like that idea, especially if we can invite.
There's TML,
more
there's
than
also
just
the
one.
Water Commission, it's a separate entity in and of itself.
I was gonna say, and I know Mr. Sane asked if this committee was out of.
There's expenses.
Well, no, if you had the ability to ask, you have the ability to ask. But I don't know, I would defer to legal to see if we can ask, I mean, we can, I guess, ask, but I don't know if, what I was gonna suggest was, and I know we're talking about rate changes and for future rate changes. That's why we have public hearings, and we have 2 or 3 public hearings, and we have to publish this, and people get the notices, and if you have a concern with something you feel is not kosher, right, that you feel that it's a waste of money, people have the right to come here and express that, right? And that's part of the democratic process that the council and the authority that the council has. And so what I was gonna suggest also is to bring in the director, because he's looked at at other cities. That's what they do. And so he can come in and try to express the reasons why we do what we do right now, or the way it is in the charter to some extent.
That's
We
Arturo
can ask-
Garcia? Mr.
Mr. Arturo Garcia, and/or someone from his department. We can also ask the folks from our finance departments to come in and express why the charter's like that. And I apologize that, we try to get as many people here to answer these questions, so we don't know all the questions either, or the concerns. So we can try to do that at least for the next meeting, for sure. But I'll defer to Zone if he has any comments on this item about TML.
If
I
I
think
may- if
they're
I may
gonna give
just-
you, well, I was just gonna say.
And Ms. Benavides, go ahead, Mr. Valdez, and then I'll
Yeah,
recognize
I
Ms.
would just, I
Benavides.
do want to emphasize TML because they have been conducting a surveys, at least since 2017, of all 491 localities that provide water and wastewater, wastewater services. Strictly, nothing to do with localities that may be doing it through municipal utility districts or other private sources. This is just situations like the one that we have in Laredo. And I feel like just based on what they have here, there could be a very fruitful conversation where we bring, we can take a look at this, we can come up with questions and have that conversation virtually. It doesn't have to be at cost. And it looks like it's already something that they do, that they've invested the time over years to take, to survey. So I think we definitely shouldn't take that off the table.
No, I don't think we're trying to put it off the table. What we want to do is we'll ask, and hopefully they're available when we have the meeting. What I was going to say, and the document that Ms. Hale sent, I was involved in putting together a charter for Rio Bravo. And so at the end of the day, it's up to the council to say this is where we want to go, because there's different forms of government, right? And we can give you all the options in the world, but you all have to say, well, this is what we like. This, I think, fits Laredo, right? And so for whatever reason, these are the options that they chose years ago, and it's been changing here and there. But we can also provide as many options that you want, right? And we'll reach out to TML, and we'll try to see if they're available for the next meeting. And if they are, then we'll do that.
Or a special meeting if necessary.
Yeah.
Yes.
If they're available for a special, next meeting, regular meeting, whatever
Right.
meeting.
I just want to be careful that I'm taking you literally, that they're available for our next meeting, and then to find out they were not available for our next meeting.
Well,
I
the next
think
meeting
this
could
group
be a
is-
special meeting. That's what
This
I'm
group
saying
is,
for whatever
is
meeting we have.
available. And again, I think I want to reemphasize, this is not to rewrite, we're not rewriting the city. They're just questions that have come up. And as people that have been asked to serve on this commission, I don't think it's out of place to ask for some information. And so, and going to an organization that specializes in this, as was so well emphasized in the document you sent us, I thought that was excellent. And it answered so many of my questions. And I'll give one small example. We talked about giving, at a prior meeting, the mayor the right to vote. Then I'd done some research and I found that under certain types of government, mayors don't vote in council because of state statute. But then you sent the document, you said, which shows that they do vote in some cities. So it's interesting how various documents say different things, and the facts are just different. I don't want to micromanage, I don't want to rewrite anything, I just want to be informed when I vote.
No, and don't get me wrong, we're gonna ask, right, if they can.
Of course.
Be available for whatever meeting we're gonna have next, special,
And
regular.
virtually as well, whatever.
And yeah, virtual, whatever options, whatever they can do to participate, right, and give you as much information as possible. And you have to also understand, and Ms. Hill would agree, and I think was even the councilman, anybody that's kind of a little bit of the background of government, we're a home rule city, so it gives us different options, right? There's smaller cities like Rio Bravo, at the time it became a home rule city, but it wasn't, it was, I think, a type C or type A, and they have to follow state laws, which allow or don't allow mayors to. There are different regulations, right, for the different types of cities. So
To do with
we can look at all of that
population,
stuff.
that's right,
And we'll try, we'll reach out to them and see if they're available.
Could I just caution the committee, we're also up against a time deadline. So think of yourself as a grand jury. As a grand jury, you could investigate anything, the death of JFK, did we land on the moon? But we're also up against a time limit that we will have to make a presentation. Or I would hate for all our work to die for lack of getting to an area. But with that, of course, all information's
But
good.
on
Yes,
that,
Ms.
on
Hill.
that, Mr. Chair, what is our goal, August, or what are we looking at that we should have?
We're looking at July,
July was,
June and July
Okay.
to present to council.
So then-
So we need to finish our work before that.
and see
And
if
so we will be having probably special meetings to try to get
Yeah.
there.
And we set this, and I want to be very clear, because we set this very early on. If we have to meet more often than once a month, let's do it. So I don't want to come upon July and say, well, we were only meeting once a month. We have already said, and I'll be saying this for maybe the second or third time, we're willing to meet more than once a month in order to thoroughly get this job done.
I agree. I just want to go through the whole charter first, and then we're gonna go back and revisit,
Thank you.
and we'll try to get, if we need special meetings, we're gonna get there.
But no, I would like to second Mr. Henry.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I would actually would like to officially ask for second meetings every month.
That's
So,
fine.
so we don't leave it till the end or whenever. I want like an action item that says, yeah, we are going to.
Because otherwise we only have two
And
meetings.
and you can schedule them anywhere. We don't really need this room. It can be at the library, it can be whenever we can,
As expressed at the last meeting,
Yeah.
we're looking at that.
Okay.
Well, back to Roque's, the councilman's point, what shall we do? Should we move on to the next, shall we consider it, or do we move on?
I think we're gonna bring back information, no?
Yeah, yeah.
TML, hopefully.
I think that's probably the best thing.
Okay. So we do have the direction to try to get that information. And Mr. Vela has planted a seed that we will be addressing, I think. No, that's good.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing. That is a good thing. With that, are we okay to continue?
Yeah.
Ms. Navarro, if you would, please.
Section 8.07, accounts of municipally, there we go, owned utilities and enterprises. Accounts shall be kept for each utility owned or operated by the city in such manner as to show the true and complete financial results of such city ownership and operation, including all assets appropriately subdivided into different classes, all liabilities subdivided by classes, by class, depreciation reserve, other reserves and surplus. Also revenues, operating expense, including depreciation, interest payments, rental and other distribution of annual income. The account shall show the actual capital cost of the city of each public utility owned, also the cost of extensions, additions, and improvements, and the source of the funds expended for such capital purposes. Accounting records shall show the cost of any service furnished to or rendered by any such utility or enterprise to any other city or government department. The city council shall annually cause to be made and publish a report showing the financial results of such city ownership and operation, given the information specified in the section and such additional data as the city council shall deem expedient.
Any discussion? If not, we can go on to the next one.
Article 9, Planning and Zoning, Section 9.01, Planning and Zoning Director. There shall be a Planning and Zoning Department headed by a director who shall be appointed and removed by the city manager with approval of the city council. The responsibilities of the planning director include: 1, advising the city manager of any matter affecting the physical development of the city. 2, formulating and making recommendations to the city manager for a comprehensive plan. 3, reviewing and making recommendations regarding proposed council action, implementing the comprehensive plan pursuant to established planning procedure. 4, participating in the preparation and revision of the capital improvement program. 5, advising the City Planning and Zoning Commission in the exercise of its responsibilities and to provide necessary staff assistance.
Any discussions? If not, let's go ahead.
Section 9.02, City Planning and Zoning Commission. There shall be a City Planning and Zoning Commission consisting of 9 members nominated by the mayor and council who shall serve at the pleasure of the city council and appointed by the majority of a quorum of the city council, but in no event by less than the affirmative vote of 4 council members. The mayor and city council members shall nominate 1 member each from among the qualified voters of the city for the term of the office holder who made the nomination. Upon vacancy, subsequent nominations shall be by the mayor or council members of their respective district corresponding to the original appointment. Members of the commission shall hold no other city office, employment, or appointment. The commission shall make recommendations to the city manager and the city council on all matters affecting the physical development of the city, shall be consulted on the creation and implementation of comprehensive plan, and shall exercise all other responsibilities as may be provided by law. Reasons for forfeiture of office by a commissioner shall include failure to attend 3 consecutive meetings without being excused by the commission.
Any discussion?
Question.
Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You go ahead.
Mr. Shuhei, then I'll recognize the chair.
And I think it encompasses the prior section. Please remind us, how many, directors may be dismissed with permission, by the city manager with approval of the city council? Is it zoning, there are about 3 directors, aren't there? Or-
City attorney, city secretary, P&Z director,
Clerk, municipal clerk.
municipal clerk, yeah.
Municipal clerk.
Those 4? Okay, thank you.
But I think his question is, do they need, the dismissal needs the approval of city council?
Yeah.
Do all of them?
Those 4?
Approval
Yeah.
and dismissal.
Really?
That's police and fire.
It's a loss of faith, kind of,
When did
like a
that,
city manager.
yeah, when did that happen?
But everybody, I'm sorry to interrupt, every other position, I'm assuming, they serve at the pleasure of the city manager. These 4 positions require the council to agree with the city manager.
Well, yeah, for the hire, but for the termination,
That's what it,
that wasn't always the case, was it?
Yeah.
Usually they resign or something, yeah. Or-
Really?
Yeah.
There's 2 that, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr.
The city
Valdez.
secretary does not require the city manager to request that they fire him or
They
remove
could go
him.
to city council.
City council can place an item just to remove them on their own. They don't need the city manager.
Then this is
And
city
there's another one, I'm trying to remember which is the other one, but there's another one in the charter that it's the same language. And then the other 2 or 3 require the city manager to first say, please remove this person. And then they can consider it. If not, they can't consider it on their own.
If I may, just for a point of clarification, I thought, Mr. Valdez, it wasn't like that. But remember, you're telling the city manager, if the city council wants him off and you don't give it to me, the same guys can go, we want you out.
Yeah, and
So that's what happens. So it always was like that, where even the city manager goes, I cannot because
Yeah.
they're already calling
that
for
dynamic has
this.
always been there, but I didn't know it was like it had to, because it does
Hard
change the
language.
situation.
Yeah, it does.
So now the city council can say, you know what, we're gonna fire him. And it takes that out of the city manager, and the city manager's like, well, you're getting rid of guys
Only on
that
two,
I
Mr.
that I
Valdez,
like.
okay.
so,
Mr. Suine, yes, sir.
thank you. Yeah, as a city that has a strong city manager form of government, I'm always in favor of supporting the manager running the city. And so I'm wondering if there's I understand for the hiring purposes, as you pointed out, but I'd like to discuss the dismissal purpose. I mean, if the city manager's just can't work with this individual, and the council says, I don't care, but they're being given they're given the responsibility of managing the city. Are these positions so special that, yeah, I would, we might say, yeah, council has to agree with this or not agree with this. I just like to discuss, it's zoning, it's, what did you say? City
attorney.
Secretary
City
is
sec-
one that is, if I may,
Yes,
Yes,
please.
sir, Mr. Valdez.
okay, this is how it reads. The city secretary may be removed from office by an affirmative vote of no less than 5 council members. So even then, they require 5 council members.
Supermajority.
The mayor can be the 6th vote, but you need 5 council members to remove that position. Then it says the internal auditor may be replaced or terminated by an affirmative vote of no less than 5 council members, also the same. Doesn't say that the city manager recommends or has to recommend. They can do that on their own, right? And, let me go quickly here. Zone, do you know okay, municipal clerk, let me read that.
And everybody's hearing the word, may, right? That's aspirational, it's not mandatory. That's just a double option.
Municipal clerk, I'm trying to see.
City attorney?
Okay, for the municipal clerk, it says there shall be a municipal, clerk of the municipal clerk, the court, who shall be nominated by the city manager. I think, all of them, I think, have to be nominated, but in the termination, that says, and then confirmed by an affirmative vote of no less than 5 council members, and who shall serve at the pleasure of the council. So even that one says, it
Mandatory
doesn't
shall.
include the city manager to say, get rid of the person, it's up to council.
This
I
is-
mean, they can recommend, like
Shall's
anyone.
mandatory.
Is this the clerk?
This is the municipal clerk.
Yes.
So those 3 right now that I just read,
Clerk, secretary, and auditor for everyone, internal auditor.
okay, I'm sorry. 1, 8, 7, 2. Give me 1 second. Municipal, city attorney. Okay, city attorneys, the city manager appoints the city attorney subject to confirmation by an affirmative vote of no less than 5 council members. City attorney shall serve until removed upon the recommendation, that's the difference, recommendation of the city manager and an affirmative vote of no less than 5 council members. So that position, the city manager has to say, I can't work with this person, or please remove him. And if he doesn't do that, my understanding is then they can't consider him to remove him on their own. Is that
Yeah, that's a
correct, Bill?
mandatory language, and that's requiring both.
For that position, and then there's the planner, let's go to the planner, let me see if that one's, it's the same as city manager, and that's why we recently had that issue, right? So removed, the city, planning and zoning department, headed by director, who shall be appointed and removed by the city manager with an affirmative, with approval by city council, that's the city council. So that could be 5 votes, and the mayor could be one of the 5th. It's not the other ones say 5 council members, which is different. And so this one, city manager has to recommend also. I think that's it, right? So
The only 2 that require the 2 are our city planner, city.
city attorney. And then,
And police chief and, fire chief, but that's.
But those are
that's
in the
law.
state statute.
That's state law, but
Yeah.
it's the same language as the city attorney and
Yeah.
the county director.
and so in the charter, the 5 positions, 5 of them, 2 of them require that the city manager say, please remove this person, right, for your consideration. Besides that, the council on their own can place an item and remove somebody.
Yeah, the ones that on their own are the
Their own.
auditor, secretary, and clerk.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and those are reasonable positions. Okay. Thank you.
And we're okay with that, right?
I do have a
Yes,
question
sir,
on the
Mr.
amount.
Taranco.
I have a question on the amount of votes, and I'm just, I'd like feedback on this. We talked about in certain instances where there should be a supermajority of council members who should vote yea on the dismissal or the hiring of certain positions, such as the city manager. We suggested that we should, or I think it was city secretary and attorney, that we should be 6 yeas as opposed to 5 yeas, because that's a simple majority, and we should have a supermajority on certain things. What is the opinion of those serving here on this committee that that should be a general fact for the other positions? I don't know what the answer is, I'm asking, because, presumably the city manager operates just about everything, and and the council either confirms or denies pretty readily their suggestion. And in this case here, hiring people and having that turnover, at least from the independent business perspective, when you have to deal with a certain amount of people and overturn over and over again, it's hard to maintain some sort of system. But presumably the dismissal of a person is a fairly grave issue, just as it is to hire someone. So I'm just asking for opinions on that.
No one, Mr. Valdez, yes, sir.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, not every department director's in here, and that's for a reason, right?
Yeah.
They basically work for the city manager and the city. Here, like the city secretary really deals with council more than anything. The attorney also represents the city, not the city manager. The internal auditor really answers to council.
Right.
And so I think that's the reason why they were kind of separated from, we don't need his permission, it's really up to council if they want to fire the person or remove them.
And if I just may, you see some of the dynamic that comes into play. The city attorney could wind up going, city manager, that's not kosher, it can't happen. So council should be protective and say he is correct, or the opposite. Just because I'm in cahoots with the city manager, because he's gonna give you a good evaluation, but the city council going, we don't have faith in those kinds of decisions or whatever. So it needs to have those two.
I know initially
Some
when-
need to double check.
When we talk like city secretary, city attorney, I think that was kind of my stance on personally, because I've had issues with city managers in the past, personally, as city secretary. Didn't agree with what they wanted to do. I felt it was wrong. And so at the end of the day, council's the one that I really, even though it says, and that's kind of, they changed the language from what it used to be, you report it to council. Then it changed to report to the city manager, but the only one that can fire is the city council. So it's like I report, and I think when Ms. Hale was the attorney, my question was, what does I report to the city manager? Do I tell him what I'm doing, or do I ask for permission? Because the only one that can give the city secretary direction in the charter says city council or state law, not the city manager. So that's always been one of those gray issues that I, as a city secretary, had a concern with. Because I didn't always agree with city manager, and I'm kind of trying to be the conscience of council, right, and try to help them as much as possible.
Especially if
But
you're.
now that I'm not gonna be there, y'all can do whatever you want.
Or city secretary is also the bearer of all documentations, our videos right now, it's also the bearer of the records, so also has that obligation. You might not like it,
Different
but
than
it's
a
gotta
general
live there.
director that the city manager oversees and can say, I can't work with this guy, I need to replace him because he's not doing the job, right? And so it's an opinion, and council really deals with these positions. Having said that, there are cities that don't have it in their charter. City secretaries are hired and fired by the city manager.
City manager, they have
They report, it's part of
100%
the
call.
division,
So-
I mean, it's up to what you guys wanna do.
I'd like to ask
Mr. Sune.
Mr. Vela his thoughts as the person who has served as a city council member on this commission. What are your thoughts on what we're discussing?
I don't, thank you for asking for my input. I don't remember, I remember having this conversation with the council member that wanted to give that power, if you will, to the ability to be able to fire essentially our zoning director. And I thought I was completely against it then. I know you guys said it's always been that way. I don't remember it being that way. Of course, I haven't been there for, I guess it's been 12 years now, 10 years. I think that brings politics into it, to be quite frank. The hiring part, I absolutely can see that. I agree with that. The city council needs to have that ability to be able to bless, if you will, the hiring. But the termination, I don't see how that we should be giving that power into the city council. Now, again, to your point, if city council doesn't like the way the city manager is managing and hiring and firing,
They lost faith.
get rid of the city manager, right?
lost faith.
That I understand. But when you start getting into all these other departments heads, aside from fire and police, of course, it becomes very political.
When you begin to add up the number of people that can disagree with the city manager, then the city manager is no longer really the city manager.
Yes.
And that's why to get rid of someone, I don't believe in the supermajority. If the city manager can get a simple majority of council to get rid of somebody, that should be enough.
That's enough.
Because then he's having to battle, he has two battles on his hand. One dealing with a director he disagrees with, right or wrong, but he's the city manager. And then he has to get the majority of city council on his side as well.
And that's that. You think
And
five
that's-
is, and five, it's not easy. having five all the time is not easy.
The only thing I'd bring, Mr. Villegas, we just heard from Mr. Valdez, where sometimes you could be at odds, and where's your duty to the city? Is my duty to the city
My
manager.
predecessor, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Valdez.
I guess I give this example, I think I gave it before. One of my predecessors said, well, you can run for office. I sued the city to run, and I won in court. But he told me, I have to deny you because, and this is true, I have to deny you because city manager said, I'll be fired if I let you run. And I had the right to run. He just didn't like me at the time. And so I had to sue the city to run because he felt that he would be fired. And so that's the only reason I had said, because these are positions that are very important, right? And so you're making decisions as the attorney makes decisions too.
But if you had the right to, in other words, I understand, and
I'm saying
and I
it's
feel
not
bad
always
for
black
that
and white.
example, but those kinds of examples, let's go back. We don't wanna rewrite, I mean, this is a general document. We can't cover for every circumstance.
I agree.
And so I'm talking about a generality on the running of a city. Those are that's a very good and specific example, but how would it be covered one way or the other here? Again, if we have a city manager form of government, then we need to give the city manager.
Could I make a recommendation? I don't know, John. I know that the city mayor has said, and I don't disagree, and I don't disagree with your
Because that
comments.
might be
because
what you're.
We're saying remove all of the positions except for the city manager out of the charter. And allow him to be the one, and maybe you can do it through ordinance to control how they're hired, how they're fired, all of that, but that'd be an ordinance. Easier to change down the road if they need to. And just for consideration.
Mr. Sune, is that what?
They don't
you're
have to be in the charter.
thinking?
That's what I'm getting at.
Well, there's
But that's up to the commission,
specific-
right? And council.
Specific positions are listed in the charter.
Mhm.
And I think you mentioned those specific positions, and I'll have to go back and read this for the umpteenth time so I can put the list of this. I understand how there's certain positions. I've worked in two cities where there were problems with the auditor. And in one area, the auditor was at odds with the council, and in the other one, the auditor was at odds with the city manager. So you can't plan for all of the eventualities. But, so I understand where the auditor is a special case, the
Auditor,
city
city manager.
secretary is a special case, and the city clerk's a special case.
What's city
City
attorney?
attorney.
The city attorney, I'm ambivalent, to be honest with you, and I'd certainly like to hear your position on that as well. But zoning, I don't understand.
If I may briefly, then, yeah, Ms. Hale, if you want to share something. I think it should be because a city attorney is not a super councilman, but he can tell the councilman, you guys are out of line here, and for the record, I'm gonna tell you now, go ahead and do it, but for the record, I told you, you're gonna be sanctioned, or sometimes you have to be the bearer of bad news. Absolutely not. Or even to tell the city manager, absolutely not, that is not, and you want that. Now, he puts it onto the record, they can still go ahead and go, that's a cute statement, we're gonna go ahead and do this, we don't care. Wacatela, I just cleared, I let you all know what's going on. Versus one that says, well, you're the guy that signs my check, or you could fire me, I guess I have to say yes always, no matter what. I don't like that, I like him to at least have that kind of.
If we have someone that cowers that way, then I'm wondering why they have that position. But anyway, that's just my thought.
Well,
I
if,
do not
okay, I'm gonna play
disagree.
devil's advocate, if I'm the city manager, Henry, I don't want that guy. That's the guy I want. Come here, you're gonna sit and do exactly what I say, yes, sir, that's the agreement, we're good. Fist bump. And you don't think those people exist? They absolutely do exist. Do I want someone like that? No, I really want a city attorney that's a city of Laredo attorney, that's looking out for all our interests.
And so the only way to make sure they watch out for all of our interests is how?
You have two. You have almost a check and balance on both sides. And the reason I bring it up, if you leave it on one, then you tie city council and they go, that's not a problem. Jack, you're the city manager, I'll just fire you. Problem solved. And that's always an option, but I like the two where, or you have a situation where they are responding. He is saying something to city council is going, he's doing a good job. You're not gonna fire him because he didn't like your idea. Or the other way around, he's in good with enough city council where the city manager goes, absolutely not. I still don't agree that that's a route we should be taking. I like that check and balance system that's going on there. But there's also other ones. He also has a legal license. He is susceptible to the Texas State Bar, and there's other revenues that also come into play.
What is zoning?
Valid points.
What do you
Valid
think, Zone?
points.
Yeah, let's hear from the
Yes,
city
yes, what do you
attorney.
think?
What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Please don't be mad at me, city manager. No, I'm joking.
I think it's just interesting because, since between the time when Christie was city attorney and I was city attorney, we had three, they only lasted 3 months each. So and, when, I get this, but like Roquevilla is saying, is that oftentimes, removal just comes from resignations, natural attrition. So it's not so much of a fear. Like, I guess if you take it out completely, that's Joe Valdez's example. Maybe you have very strong council members tells the city manager you're going to fire the city attorney. So maybe that check and balances. Well, you need at least a majority of council. And if I may, while I have the floor, a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Maybe y'all would want some consistency because, like, for instance, the city attorney removal is by council members, excluding the mayor, and then here the planning and zoning is by city council, which allows the mayor to vote. I'm not sure why there's that inconsistency. You might want to, make things a bit more consistent across the board.
Yes, Chairman, I was at,
Mr. Vela, yes, sir.
if there was one motion that I was gonna put, it was just that one. I'm kind of tired of the mayor, not that this mayor does, I've watched one meeting, but mayor's hiding behind, I can't vote. I've literally seen mayors like just caught like a deer caught in headlights because he had to vote. He's elected, let him vote. That's just all of them, every single one, let him make a decision.
I was just gonna mention, that was
Yes,
one of
sir.
the motions when we were discussing the mayors to let him vote.
Yeah, it's just.
So that
Stop
was one that the
complicating it.
commission already voted on.
We voted and approved.
Oh,
We'll
yeah?
bring those
Yeah, okay, so
recommendations
now that's
back.
all, in every single one, in the charter, that's in, awesome.
So he can no longer go, well, it's city council, what can I tell you, unless there's a tie? No, that's out now. Now he has to make a call. Heads or tail, one way or the other. Yes, sir, Mr. Carranco, and am I missing anyone over here? I don't want to, okay, go ahead, Mr. Carranco.
Returning back to the planning and zoning director.
Yes, sir.
It would seem that we're kind of not quite sure what direction to take it. I think part of us want to leave it here, but I'm starting to get some sort of sense that maybe we don't even want to include the council in a decision for a position like planning and zoning. The city manager would like to fire the planning and zoning director, then so be it. Is this something that we're kind of moving toward, or are we moving toward just a general leaving this section as is?
Do we have any discussion regarding that? I don't want to ignore this, like sometimes looking this way. If not, Mr. Vela, do you have a thought or?
I honestly, I can see both sides. You made some very valid points. There's a checks and balances. Me sitting as a council member, I know just how political it can get when you have certain people that are upset with your planning and zoning director. They start to just slowly get into your ear and work with other council members as well. Quite honest with you, I'm okay with either one. If somebody wants to change it, I'm fine with that. Somebody wants to leave it like that, I'm fine with that too. And I know that doesn't sound like I'm making a decision, but I see both sides. I see both. So, yeah, my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Vela. With that, yes, sir, Mr. Beck.
Yeah, I had a question about the second sentence of section 9.02, which reads that the mayor and council members shall nominate one member from among the qualified voters of the city for the term, et cetera. On a commission like the Planning and Zoning Commission, is it important that we have geographical representation of the districts, or is it assumed that council persons will choose someone from their district, or is that not important?
I can tell you from experience, they
okay.
try to do that,
Yeah.
but it's not always possible, so
Yeah.
that's why you want to have that.
You want to have of the city, because if we
Sometimes
put
it's
of their respective districts, it would be
Correct.
too much of a restriction. Some people wouldn't be able to find. Yeah, okay.
And supposedly, I guess the logic, Jack, would be, well, you never put anyone from our district, you only cater to the guys in the north. Well, go ask them for the vote when it comes up here, because we're not smart enough for that. but
Right, there's that
only to
aspect
vote.
of it as well.
Yeah, you're risking that. You're an elected creature. You're coming in from your district. You do have to respond.
I mean, in theory, everybody could come from the same neighborhood,
Yeah.
and the way the language is written. But
Good.
that typically does not happen, I understand.
With that, is there any other discussion? And if not, Ms. Navarro, if you would lead us to our next one.
Section 9.03, Comprehensive Plan A Content. The council shall adopt and shall review or modify each year before the adoption of the budget a comprehensive plan to govern the future physical development of the city. The requirements and contents of the comprehensive plan shall be subscribed by ordinance. B, adoption, the city manager shall submit the proposed comprehensive plan or proposed modification of the existing plan. The council shall refer such proposal to the city planning and zoning commission, which shall, within a time specified by council, report its recommendations thereon. After receipt of the recommendations of the commission, the council shall hold a public hearing of the proposed comprehensive plan or modification thereof, and shall thereafter adopt it by resolution with or without amendment. C, effects. The comprehensive plan shall serve as a guide to all future council action concerning land use and development regulations, urban renewal programs, and expenditures for capital improvements.
I do have a
Yes, sir, Mr. Carranco.
I'm not quite sure how I want to phrase this, but comprehensive plan was last done in 2016, I believe, under the Viva Laredo initiative, and really great plan. It was the first time we had touched the comprehensive plan in a couple of decades, and while we still participate in that and still follow that fairly closely, as far as I can tell in my business, I often feel like we left the comprehensive plan languish. In many ways, I don't feel like this particular section has teeth to it. We do talk about it, but it's already been 10 years since the last Viva Laredo plan, and it's about time we start looking at that again, and we don't have any provision for that in this charter. In your experience or any other experience here of those folks who are here, is there any plan out there to do a revisit to the comprehensive plan in a comprehensive manner? Sorry.
The comprehensive plan, again, in the charter says it's approved every year. I've asked the city planner before the budget, remind them. No, Mr. Navarro said they didn't have any recommendations for council, so I just went forward continue as we are. I don't know if council has plans right now. It'd be up to council to say, force a upgrade of the Viva Laredo, right? But every year it does go before council with or without amendments. And so they do make small changes, but sometimes they don't.
This commission meets every 10 years, is that correct? Or is it every 5?
No, you're required to have a commission every 10 years. But I think every 2 years, you can have a commission.
Is it possible to add, have you seen language in other municipalities that mimic that sort of language in the comprehensive plan, where it becomes a requirement to revisit it in its entirety every 5 years with public comment?
They're supposed to review it every year. But you're saying to hold a commission or put together a group to revisit it, or almost like,
It's supposed to be done.
Sunset Commission or
Yeah, it's supposed to be done every year, but again, it's
well,
like.
no, recommendations, no? In other words, the planning
The
director is the
review or
one that
modify
makes.
every year.
City manager shall submit a proposed comprehensive plan. In other words, if he gets it from the city manager, from the planner, who presents it to planning and zoning, so they present that they have no changes or recommendations. Planning and zoning votes on it, okay, we don't have any concerns, goes to the city manager, it's adopted by council. That's supposed to happen every year. Now, if you want to create a commission, that's, I guess, something different.
Wouldn't be in this.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I guess that's where you're going, right?
That's effectively where I'm going, I suppose.
Okay, again, that's up to you all to make recommendations for council consideration to put into the charter, if that's something that you all want to consider.
So, question, is the
Sardinia.
is the comprehensive plan discussed in 9.03, the Viva Laredo plan?
I want to say,
Because, see, we're discussing planning and zoning. So is it a planning and zoning comprehensive plan? Because the Viva Laredo plan, wasn't that a city?
it was more than just planning and zoning
Planning and
issues.
zoning is not responsible, are they,
But the Viva Laredo.
when they come, okay, so when we're saying they come up here annually, it's not to update the Viva Laredo or talk
No.
about that, that's,
Oh, that's different.
And annually, before the budget, they adopt all the zone changes for the previous year, so they amend the comprehensive plan to include those. I'm not sure
that's
how
what, so that's what this one is?
Yes.
Okay,
I don't
got
know
it.
if that fits
I think Viva Laredo is something much more than just what issues are in planning.
So it's a planning and zoning comprehensive plan, and Mr. Carranco, not not a city plan.
Duly noted. Thank you. No further comment.
Thank you, Mr. Carranco. With that, if there's no other,
No, but
Yes,
so,
sir,
I
Mr.
didn't wanna
Souvenir.
leave, I didn't wanna leave what his thought, I mean, I think it's something we should be thinking about, and where that might go. But because city does need, on a regular basis, to be coming, planning it, if it's not this plan, what's the plan that the city needs to review once every 5 years at least, that giant comprehensive plan.
Right. And that's effective. I would like to enshrine that in here in some place. I'm not quite sure where that would be, but that is dependent on my research. And
Wants to look into it and bring back an option of where that might.
where we could
to create
place
a
it, and then
commission
there
or
could be a motion made to address that.
To create a commission
Um,
or
It
come
may
back with
be-
recommendations for y'all to consider.
9.04. I think
yeah, that's
that-
kind of,
Yeah, I think it might, it talks about urban renewal and that they can do that by ordinance. It might be there.
really, I think the first question is, let's define what this comprehensive plan is, if it is indeed for the internal machinations of that department versus the Viva Laredo plan. I think that's probably the real question here. And if it's not, and if it's a separate document, then we may need to look at adding a additional provision to the charter.
Commissioners, bring back that information.
Thank you for the hassle.
Thank you.
And I'll note that a good reason for that is those, some of us serve also on local, state, and regional transportation associations where we talk about plans that if the organization doesn't show that it has a 5-year plan, you fall short on the scoring mechanism for getting funding for that. Not that this Viva Laredo would be used for applying for transportation funds, but it could be used as a backup. I know that we do 5-year plans now because it's required on the state and federal level just to get funding. Why not just have that giant city comprehensive plan updated every 5 years? It makes sense. I'm just adding that as a reason for it. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Vela.
I agree, and I know I'm skipping ahead a little bit to 9.4, 0.04, but to your point, this has no teeth. And one of the things that I see that sticks out that's really important to all of us is the alleviation or prevention of slums, adolescence, blight, and or other delirious conditions, which I know everybody's been trying for 20 years, seems like, to revitalize downtown, and we haven't, and it's not from a lack of trying, just nothing has quite happened. I think if we put something in here where there's more oversight and put more importance on it, and so we're, every 5 years, like, hey, we want a plan, and where are we? And we revisit that, and would go a long ways.
Yeah.
How exactly you word that, to your point, I don't know, but I think that's where we can maybe get to something that you want to accomplish.
With that, I guess we could continue. Ms. Navarro?
Section 9.04, implementation of the comprehensive plan, A, land use and development regulations. By ordinances, the council may adopt land use and development regulations, including but not limited to an official land use map and zoning and subdivision regulations. B, urban renewal, the council may by ordinance provide for redevelopment, rehabilitation, conservation, and renewal programs for 1, the alleviation or prevent of slums, obsolescence, blight, or other deleterious, there you go, conditions, and number 2, the achievement of the most appropriate use of land and environmental protection. C, council action before acting on any proposed ordinance concerning land use development code. That was my bad. Where such ordinance refers to a matter covered by the comprehensive plan, the council shall refer the proposal of the Planning and Zoning Commission, which shall within a time specified by the council and prior to the public hearing on the proposed ordinance, report its recommendations thereon. Prior to adopting any such ordinance, the council shall report on the relationship between the ordinance and the comprehensive plan. In the event that the ordinance is adopted and does not accord with the comprehensive plan, the plan shall be deemed to be amended in accordance with the ordinance.
Any discussion? Let's go ahead and go on.
Okay, Section 9.05, Board of Adjustment. The council shall appoint a Board of Adjustment and shall provide standards and procedures for such board to hear and determine those matters specified in accordance with state law. The mayor and each member of the city council shall nominate one member of the board subject to confirmation by the affirmative vote of at least 5 council members or 4 council members and the mayor. The term of office will be the same as the term of the office holder who made the nomination. Vacancy shall be filled by the same nomination and confirmation process.
Any discussion? Let's go to the next one, Ms. Navarro.
Article 10, Nominations and Elections, Section 10.01, City Elections. A, regular elections. The regular city election shall be held on the date determined by city ordinance in compliance with the Texas Election Code and the Texas Constitution. B, qualified voters. All citizens qualified under the Constitution and laws of the state of Texas to vote in a city election and who satisfy the requirements for voter registration prescribed by law shall be qualified voters of the city within the meaning of this charter. C, conduct of elections. Except as otherwise provided by this charter, the provisions of the general election laws of the state of Texas shall apply to elections held under this charter. All elections provided for by the charter shall be conducted by the election authorities established by law.
Any discussion? Go ahead, Ms. Navarro.
Section 10.02, Nominations. Any person filing for office shall file an application with the city secretary in accordance with the Texas Election Code. Each candidate's application for a place on the ballot must be accompanied by a non-refundable filing fee in the amount to be determined by ordinance or in lieu of a payment of a filing fee, a petition signed by a certain percentage in the amount to be determined by ordinance of the total votes received in the last general election by the candidates for the office sought.
Any discussion? Go ahead.
Section 10.03, Ballots. The ballot shall be prepared in accordance with the Texas Election Code. Candidates shall draw for position on the ballot in accordance with the Texas Election Code.
No discussion? Go ahead.
Section 10.04, Determination of the election results. A majority vote for any office is the number of votes which is a majority of the total number of valid ballots cast for the office concerned. Any candidate who receives a majority vote shall be declared elected. If none of the candidates for any particular office receives a majority vote, none of such candidates shall be declared elected. B, runoff election. If under the foregoing provisions of this section, one or more offices remain unfilled after the election, a runoff election shall be held according to the current Texas Election Code to fill them. The names in each case shall be those of the 2 candidates polling the greatest numbers of votes in the initial election.
Any discussion? Go ahead, Ms. Navarro.
Section 10.05, Ballots of the Ordinance and Charter Amendments. An ordinance or charter amendment to be voted on by the voters of the city shall be presented by voting by ballot title. The ballot title of a measure may differ from its legal title and shall be clear, concise statement describing the substance of the measure without argument or prejudice. Below the ballot title shall appear the following question: shall the above described ordinance amendment be adopted? Immediately below such question shall appear in the following order the words yes and no, and to the left of each square in which by making a cross the voter casts his vote.
Any discussion? Go ahead.
Section 10.06, Council Districts, Adjustment of Districts. A, number of districts, there shall be 8 City Council districts. B, Redistricting Commission, the council shall appoint 16 registered city voters who shall comprise the Redistricting Commission. The commissioners shall not be employed by the city in any capacity. Each council member will appoint 2 commissioners. C, report specifications by the first day of January after every federal census or as soon as feasible after release of certifiable population figures by the federal census, and Redistricting Commission shall file a report with the city secretary containing a recommended plan for adjustment of the council district boundaries to comply with these specifications. One, each district shall be formed of compact, contiguous territory as nearly rectangular as possible, and its boundaries line shall follow the center lines of the streets. Two, each district shall contain as nearly as possible the same number of people, but districts shall not differ in population by more than 10% of the population in the smallest districts created. The report shall include a map of the description of the districts recommended and shall be drafted as proposed ordinance. Once filed with the city secretary, the report shall be introduced as an ordinance by a council member. D, procedure. The procedure of the council's consideration of the report shall be the same as for other ordinances, provided that if a summary of the ordinances is published pursuant to section 2.09, it must include both the map and the description of the recommended districts. E, failure to enact redistricting ordinances. The council shall adopt the ordinance no more than 90 days from the date of its introduction. If it's not adopted by the city council on the 91st day, the report of the redistricting commission shall be deemed to have been adopted. F, enactment. The new council districting boundaries as of the 181st day after adoption of the redistricting ordinance shall supersede previous council district boundaries for all purposes in the next regular city election. The new districts and boundaries shall supersede previous districts and boundaries for all other purposes as of the date in which all city council members elected that regular city election take office. G, incumbent options of the redistricting change. The redistricting changes affect the boundaries of the district that a particular council member represents as follows. 1, a council member serving a first term of office who is eligible for re-election may A, choose to finish out the term the city council member was elected to, or B, choose to run the election in the new district that the council member resides in. The end result would mean that the council member will have served the city for 2 terms and a total of 6 years. The original council district will now have a 2-year unexpired term open for another candidate to seek election to. Number 2, a council member completing a final second term of office may A, choose to finish out the term the council member was elected to represent in the original district, or B, choose not to represent the council member or represent the district, and thus a 2-year unexpired term is left vacant for election.
Any discussion? If not, go ahead.
Did we finish with this section?
Oh, yeah, we finished with that
No, we're
section.
down with 10.
So, I have a question that was,
Q&A.
or a point that was raised, at our initial meeting. It's just a very general discussion, because we were then gonna get into the specifics here. You know, I think that sometimes I get the impression from the outside looking in that having 8 districts is almost like having 8 cities. Because you have, although the council once should be working in unison, I think, and they often do, looking out, and if you ask any council person, they're gonna say, of course, I'm looking out for the better of the city, the greater good. Greater good is a term volleyed around a lot. I'm wondering if this is not a time to discuss an option here that maybe 2 of these districts should be larger than council districts, and maybe be half-city districts where you know, east and a west kind of deal.
It's always
I'm sorry?
been general and special, but, you know, some people do the hybrid, a general,
Yeah,
citywide.
you could do citywide, and I know that was put on as an amendment, and it was actually voted down. I don't believe it was voted down by many citizens, you know, it was a close election. But, you know, another option there in terms of a general person would be someone that represents, if you went from 8 districts to 6 districts, and then 2 of those districts incumbent 3 and 3 of them, then you'd be, citizens would be voting for not only the mayor, but 2 people to represent them. The person that represents the general area, let's say the east, and their particular council person. I offer that for discussion.
Any Mr. Vela, and then afterwards, I'll put myself in. Mr. Vela, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like the idea of, if you change two council districts, then you're going to, the likelihood of, number one, of it actually getting past city council is gonna be that much lower. Because now, which council district's gonna let go of his or her district? Obviously, it'd probably be somebody who's is termed out, but then you run into the issue of the other people that are running for that district as well. Now, adding to at-large districts, I think that's something that the city's growing. It didn't grow as much as we would have liked here recently, but it continues to grow, and that's something that that would probably be more accepted by the city council and probably the people as a whole, or something like you're talking about east-west or something in that.
My only reluctance there is this, I'm not trying to grow government.
I
In fact,
agree,
if it were
yeah.
up to me,
Yeah.
we'd have two council people, okay?
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting that San Antonio, which we often turn to as a decently run city, a council person represents 100,000 people there. And for us to add another layer of council representation will make it more bureaucratic. My point in recommending this is not to add to the bureaucracy. It's to take away from it. So anyway, just my thought.
Mr. Suvinay, now I'm gonna come in after Mr. Vela. My only concern is, I don't like east, west, I don't like north, south. Either you're gonna leave the district and go general citywide, because I don't want there to ever be no, it's east versus west, north versus south.
Got it.
If it's gonna be open it up for the city. Yes, Ms. Benavides?
Yeah, I just, I want to point out that if we're going to have this conversation, we also need to go back to Article 2 and talk about Section 2.1, the composition. My only question, I like the idea of having 6 single-member districts and 2 at-large. My question is, when would that breakdown happen, given that we just went through a census and we just went through a redistricting, and how would those, what would be the timeline that's appropriate for that? Do we do that in the middle of, we have another 5 years left for a census, or do we wait until 2030? And how do we look at those council members that are termed out and those council members that just started their terms?
Anybody? If not, Ms. Benavides, then I'll add another layer. So, once I finish up my terms in my district, now I'm open to do 2 more terms as general, or no. City council was 2 terms, whether it was general or specific, you're now termed out. You're standing, you now open up, like you said, Mr. In theory, that's 2 more mayors.
Yeah.
You're now opening it up for,
Yeah, no, no, go ahead, Mike. Thank you.
Mr. Vela and then Dr. Reyes.
The charter's pretty specific about it. It's 2, right now, of course, we're talking about tweaking that, but it's 2 full terms, regardless if it's in a different district, or in this case, at-large district, whatever that is. But, I mean, I think it's time for something to give. The trick is going to be how do we make that transition where it's as painless as possible? And how do we also get the city council to be able to accept this? Because, I mean, and honestly, I would be too if I was on council. Like, how does this going to affect me, and how is it going to affect, the future of the district, and how is it all going to work out? So if we do this, it's going to have to be something that is very, very carefully planned and worded, so that there's no way that they can shoot holes in that it doesn't make sense.
Right.
For them to be able to accept it. And also, one thing that's going to come up, I can tell you what's going to come up, is there's going to be that fear that the north side is going to have more representation to the south side. Because this is fact, is more times than not, and when I say more times, I mean like 99% of the time, whoever's running for that at-large district is going to have more money. And they're not going to come from the south. So then the south is going to they're going to get defensive. So now we're talking about, do we want to take 2 of those districts in the north side and make those at large, or how is that going to work? Because that's going to come up, and that's going to be the biggest pushback that the city council, and honestly, the people as a whole, are probably going to have. So those are all things that we're going to have to figure out. But I think there's definitely something there that we can do, that we can come up with that makes sense. But it's going to take time. And the good thing is we only have 2 more chapters left. We can get through those pretty quickly and really dedicate the next, month and a half to coming up with something that makes sense.
Dr. Reyes, you had a,
I was going to say something similar to what Mr. Vela has said. And it is this idea that elections are expensive. And so it does worry me. While I do believe that change is imminent as we grow, if we do change the vote under the mayor's office, then that at least may initiate this transition to at large. But I am worried that it will result in a class division with two at-large districts, especially because it is more expensive to run for mayor than it is to run for city council. So while I do like the idea of having a point of view that is citywide and a point of view that is district, I am more worried about those that will not be heard or represented once that is initiated.
Mr. Suede? Yes, sir.
So I agree. I think that the plan would include a transition because it can't be an abrupt kind of deal saying, okay, you no longer are a council person or something to that effect. I'm going to an extreme. But it would be a transition period where the districts would be drawn. I mean, you already have smaller county commissioner districts, so it's possible to do this. That was the reason why, and I gave it thought. Believe me, I thought about the last time this was put up in the charter, and I did think, who's well funded, who would win the general election. That's why I thought of a division. I purposely used east and west because but it's it could be a north and south. And so the voters from that southern part vote for one of the at-large positions, and the voters from the north vote for one of the at-large positions. And you have to live in that district to run. You can't be at the at-large and both live in the north, for example. That could be a way of writing things so that it becomes also more of a, I feel I have a representative in my area. Just a thought.
Yes, sir, Mr. Vela, and then I'll throw in a thought for that.
One more point is the last time that this went to referendum, remember, it would not have gotten past city council. There was, I don't remember how many signatures were attained, but in order to make sure that it got on. So, I think this probably might received a little bit differently, depending on how we present it. But there's also that uphill battle, if you will, that we'd have to face. That frankly, I'd be all for. I mean, if it's something that makes sense.
Yeah. If I could just make a comment to Mr. Suene, and then I'll recognize Jack. Redistricting, we have to submit it to the Department of Justice for review. When you do east, west, or however you want to do it, you're up against a river. So one area can't grow, the other one has to go the other way, and that might cause an issue right now. How are you going to divide it? Why did you divide north versus south? Why did you divide?
Isn't that based on population?
East, and it is on population, but it has to be equal and uniform. They do equal and uniform, but what you're trying to avoid is an appearance of gerrymandering where you say, okay, it's got to be east and west. Now you're forcing up the votes there. I'm all for it, but I really like either general or specific. If we start on little quadrants, the more you start breaking up a city like that, you're going to have problems because you have to get it past Austin. You have to make sure Department of Justice also is in agreement with it. So that's the only reason I'm a little reluctant. And going to Mr. Vett, we once were not specific, and they always said, well, it's the only 2 blocks that control Laredo that had everyone that was voting, whatever. And there was a big change that, no, we're going to have districts. And they went hard. It was a radical change. So maybe is that something that we're interested in now, or is that a change that we'd like to bring in? With that, Mr. Jack, didn't I say I was going to recognize you? Jack, if you would, please.
Yes, so I was just thinking about this idea or this goal of reducing bureaucracy, and is it the case that an at-large district and adding 2 of them would reduce bureaucracy?
You'd have the same number of elected officials. My point was, I didn't want to add 2 more elected officials to the ballot.
I see.
That's not my goal.
I see. Got it.
So you don't want to make this table longer. Let's leave the table this size. That's okay.
We have enough people representing.
I am in agreement.
An at-large district would create resentment of the kind that they're discussing and that they're worried about. Is it to be considered that we would reduce the number from 8 to 6? I mean, we could be in keeping with the law of uniformity.
Yes,
If
absolutely.
we reduce the number from 8 to 6, and that would meet your goal of reducing some bureaucracy, 8 to 6.
Yeah, in other words, just eliminate 2 councils.
Maybe combining 2 northern districts and combining 2 southern districts. That way you avoid the
Well,
resentment problem.
population redistribution.
I want to recognize Mr. Carranco.
I'll split the baby. My suggestion is 3.
7.
It would be 3 at-large districts. I've always seen Laredo as unique in its how long it is, and if you divide it to a north, central, and south Laredo, which is effectively how how a lot of folks describe themselves, you create 3 at-large districts, get rid of 3 council districts, we maintain 5, so you still have a fairly good intimate relationship with your general council person. So in other words, you create 3 and 5.
So, ready for?
Mr. Sune, yes, sir?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Yes, sir,
I'm
Mr.
going
Sune.
to borrow a little bit from what Mr. Vela said at the very beginning. This is something that we should think about. I move that this commission take the discussion we have right now. We have more planning to do with the rest of the charter. We want to go through this. This is a longer discussion, and let it ferment in our minds, and let's come back when we've given a little more thought and discussion. Just, I don't want to finish the topic now. I want us to take.
At our next meeting.
Yeah.
Second.
Yes, sir, Mr. Valdez.
I was just gonna mention and clarify that I think when we initially talked about in section 2 point whatever, that we were going to eventually come back to discuss this item, and staff was gonna give you different recommendations as different forms of makeup, right, of council, and for your consideration, and I think we're still looking at that, and so we're gonna come back with it could be part of what you all talked about at large, different changes of single members, place 1, place 2 in different council districts,
Yeah.
different things like that. We're gonna bring you some options, so we're still under that mindset. And hopefully, we're just trying to get to the whole thing first, and then, eventually come back and revisit all these items.
Very good.
So,
We're still on that plan, but you all can make a motion. It's basically the same thing.
I remember
Benavides?
that motion was made for section 2.01, so I would just
Yes.
like to amend
So
the
then,
motion.
so if it was
for
already made, I
10.06.
can withdraw it.
Well, I think we need to add
Okay.
section 10.06.
Okay. So then,
I would like to make a motion to amend Mr. Savigny's motion and include in our research on council district adjustment, section 10.06 for research purposes.
We have a motion by Ms. Benavides. Do we have a second?
Second.
Who seconded over here? I was looking at you, Mr. Dave. I'm sorry.
no, it's because she amended my motion.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Okay, because I thought, okay, they're in agreement. You're correct, Mr. Sune. I'm sorry. I heard it from over here. Who seconded it? Mr. Vela. Perfect.
Yes,
I just want to keep the record
because
clean,
it's an
Mr. Vela.
amendment.
Yes, I agree to.
Or was it Dr. Reyes?
No, because it's an amendment, then
I
Mr.
agree to the recommendations.
Okay. We have a second, right?
Right.
That means no other discussion. Call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? None opposed with Mr. Killam in abstention. We're ready to go to the next section. Ms. Navarro, if you would.
Article 11, Initiative, Referendum, and Recall, Section 11.01, Recall Provisions. Any elected official may be removed from the office by recall. A petition stating the specific grounds on which removal is sought shall be signed by the registered voters equal in number to 10% of the registered voters in the city or district election to which the elected official was elected to office, and shall be filed with the city secretary by any registered voter who is eligible to vote in the proposed recall election. The recall petition shall have a time limit of 6 months from the earliest date of the signature of the petition to the date of its filing within the city secretary. Furthermore, no recall petition shall be filed against an elected official within 6 months after taking office, nor within 6 months of the end of the elected term. A person subjected to recall election and not removed may not be the subject of another recall election for 6 months.
I would like to
Yes, Ms. Benavides.
propose that we, just given the situation that we were in for the last 2 years, I would like us to consider adjusting that number because there wasn't a recall election. I think 10% of the registered voters, even in a district, is that sometimes all the voter turnout that we get, right? If a council member is representing 30,000 people, we get 3,000 votes in one district. That makes it really difficult to recall elected officials. And I think if we had the percentage be the 10% out of the voters that voted in that election,
Voted at the last election.
at the last
That's how
election,
it used to be.
that might make it more feasible for people to hold their elected officials accountable.
So the irony in this, I'm going to second this, and I'm gonna tell you why it's so ironic. Because this came up while I was in council, and I was actually the one that pushed it to go from the people that voted to registered voters. Because I just felt like at the time, everybody wanted to recall everybody, because Councilmember Vera had just gotten recalled, and everyone was, oh, we're gonna recall you, and I'm like, you know what, this is too much. But now, I regret it, so I'm second.
So we have a motion by Ms. Benavides, second by Mr. Vela. Any further discussion?
Yes, just,
Mr. Subine, yes, sir.
it's just a comment because I remember that discussion on council and I remember thinking how difficult, because the council, and I'm referring to the item you voted for in particular you brought up, but also it was involved, it encompassed in the greater districting conversation, and how city council entertained zero recommendations from the city charter commission that year, zero. And so we had to go to petition and how difficult that was, and this just made it so much more
I
difficult.
think that's probably why, another reason why I did it too,
Yeah,
to be
and
honest.
so it was just, but the difficulty was incredible, and
Yeah, it's just too much.
I mean,
And by the way, congratulations, you guys.
it
Wow.
was a first in history,
Yeah,
and it became more difficult because of this.
yeah.
And so, yeah, I thank you for agreeing to second that
Yeah,
motion.
without a doubt.
Any other discussion?
Can we have a statement of what is being moved again?
Yes,
Just
it's
for
by Ms. Benavides. Do you want to do it from Article?
So,
Thank you.
I want to make a motion for section 11.1 to alter the number of registered voters that are required to vote in a proposed recall election, so that the number reflects 10% of the voters that voted in the last election, not 10% of the registered voters of that city or district.
We have a motion by Ms. Benavides. We have a second by Mr. Vela. Any other discussion or clarification? If not, let's call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
Out of curiosity-
Just make sure, all are in favor with one abstention, Mr. Kellum. Yes, sir.
Out of
Jack.
curiosity, what is the average number of persons represented, or that a city council person in Laredo represents?
Normally, I think,
Just an average.
population or registered voters?
Yeah,
Right.
because
Population.
you have illegal alien and they represent them too.
Well-
They live in their district.
Well, then that's
so-
three options, registered voter,
Yeah.
population,
Sure, give
population
them all,
with illegal.
give us all three then.
I don't know whether they have the
Yeah,
illegal
yeah.
one.
I don't think they do.
Population in
I
general.
want to say that the last boundary changes, I want to say it was 25, almost 30,000 people,
Yes, about 33.
And with 10% vote.
right?
There is close to 550 during the day, so I don't know. The voters are very small.
Yeah, that's right.
There's 120,000
About 30,000,
registered voters, but vote.
32,000, somewhere around there. Population wise, registered voters a lot less, right? And so in some districts you have, again, 3,000 people voting only.
And active voters is one more.
And that's even smaller, right? Okay.
That's a great motion.
But there is even
great
voters from Meadow, the cemetery, that still votes. We count them, they're voters, but they're not, okay, never mind, that was a side comment.
And they vote.
The cemetery, they're not alive, but they
And
can
we
vote,
removed
so
the
they're
early
still
voting
counted
site from the
voters, but they're
cemetery.
not living humans.
There's no more early voting site at the cemetery.
There
just
you
so
go.
know.
Bad joke. With that, we had it passed, let's go to our next one, Ms. Navarro.
Section 11.02, signatures to petition. The signatures to any petitions need not to be appended to one petition and may be duplicated and assembled, but to each separate paper, there shall be attached an affidavit of the person circulating the petition, and such paper shall be invalid without such affidavit. Each signer of any petition paper shall, after his/her signature, show the place of residence by street and number, voter registration certificate number, and the date that the signature was affixed on the petition. The affidavit attached to each petition or duplicate shall be as follows. State of Texas, County of Webb, being duly sworn, deposes and says that he or she personally circulated the foregoing paper, that all the signatures affixed thereto were made in his or her presence, and that he or she believes them to be genuine signatures of the persons whose names they purport to be. Signed, subscribed, and sworn to me before this day of, and then Notary Public, State of Texas.
Any discussion? Yes, sir.
Is it an obstacle to getting signatures to require that the voter registration certificate number be included? Do signers know that number? I don't know mine number. I know I can vote, but I don't know that number. Voter registration certificate number.
And that's why, if you don't know, Henry, we're looking towards you. Was that an obstacle that you had to go, okay, they get the voter list, find out, and, okay, here's Jack, Jack's number
We
is
had,
this.
the petition had the name of the voter,
Address.
the address, and that was, and maybe even a phone number, but we collected name, address, phone number, and email if they would give it to us, and that's what the city checked against.
So that the number could be found out by checking by cross-referencing the.
Yeah,
But this-
the voter rolls to see,
this
hey,
line-
that is legit.
This language here suggests that the signer needs to include.
Should have
him.
included.
Maybe we should eliminate that language so we can reflect
I
actual
want
practice.
to say that there's state law that says these are the things you have to have.
Would the city secretary in your case, have you checked those when they bring those to you? Do you know?
Yeah.
Oh, they are verified.
Yeah.
Okay,
Even
the
when people
registration?
register in general, we ask for copies of the voter registration, because they have to be registered voters of the city. Even though it's optional for them to sign in the application that they're registered voters, but they have to be, and so that's state requirement. And so, on our own, we always, anybody registering to be a candidate, we automatically ask the elections office for a copy of their voter registration to make sure it's accurate and correct, or, yeah, correct. So even if you take it out and it's required, it's still required. I want to say it is by state law, that's why it's in here.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I can't imagine your ordinary voter would.
No, and they don't have to,
Oh, they don't have to.
The person
state
gathering
law
it.
requires them to really sign.
Oh, I
There's
see.
certain information that has to be in the petition itself,
Okay.
but that, anybody collecting it can put that
And fill
information.
it in
Oh, I
after,
see.
or
They just have
can be
to-
verified.
This has to be their signature that they
Right,
agreed to
you
be on the
go back
petition.
and that's right.
It's
And
got to
then
be
we
on the
have to
form. It
review
doesn't
it.
have to be provided by the signer.
There's like an
Right.
app that you go back and you check to see if they're.
Yeah, we can check online also through the
That's right.
state.
Yeah.
And we do that.
Is-
And there's been cases where people get challenged because all the signatures are the same.
Yeah.
Everyone has a unique signature, so that's when you're like, whoa, red flag. And so someone might challenge that. So that's why you sign the affidavit at the bottom saying, I saw them sign it.
Yeah.
And you're saying that this person signed this,
Sworn affidavits are
Petition.
legal documents, so
yeah,
subject to perjury and obstruction and all the fun,
all the good stuff.
all the good stuff.
So then the petition that's turned in, just to clarify this point, so the petition that's turned in doesn't have to include the person's voter registration certificate number.
No, and really the application that they submit, it says it's optional. But we have to verify that they're registered voters, so we do it anyways, right? Some people do know it, some people don't, but we have to verify. Based on the address, based on the person's name, the age, I think it has the age also in the voter registration. So we confirm that this is the person, right? And that they're registered voters.
The point would be to enable that verification, and it looks like that verification is already happening.
We're doing that as a
Yes.
practice. Because they're saying that they're registered voters, and it is what do you call it, it's an affidavit and it's a legal document. So if they're lying and they're not registered voters, then that's an issue, right? And that's where people get sued. But on our own, as a practice, we always make sure that they're registered
They
voters
have
just for us.
complied with the requirements
And
that are
yes,
gonna
because
turn,
they
you
have
know,
to
the
comply with the
numbers are
requirements,
right.
so we check in addition, and I get copies from Not just me checking online, because I do that, but I also ask them, give me a copy of their voter registration, so we have it on file
Yeah.
as a backup for us.
And now I recall that during the petition process, I remember the goal was something like 10 to 15% above the minimum requirement because
some
we
people get kicked
knew
out.
they were going to be, yeah, exactly.
They don't know if they're registered, they think they are, they're registered somewhere
Right.
else, so it's, that one's canceled out, and so,
Or
yeah,
they
you always
sign
try to
it.
get more than what's
Or
required.
they signed the petition in two different locations, kind of
Exactly.
thing. Yeah, yeah.
So it actually means that only registered voters can sign a petition.
On this,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
you sign a petition,
For a recall?
Yeah, this is for a recall, right?
yeah.
this
Because they're
is
the ones
for
that
the recall?
elected them, theoretically.
Ah,
Yeah.
I thought it
So
was also
only
for
the ones-
initiatives or referendums.
I think also, no?
I believe
I
so.
think this is in general, the petition,
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
these
For-
signatures
for-
are for
for
everything.
voting.
Yeah,
but you have to be a registered voter,
so you have to be okay, thank you.
yes.
Yeah, and I would leave it.
That's fair.
That's fair.
Are we okay? Any other discussion? If not, Ms. Navarro? If we continue?
We have a lot of people here.
Section 11.03, filing, examination, and certification of recall petition. All petition papers comprising a recall petition shall be assembled and filed with the city secretary as one instrument. Within 20 days after filing, the city secretary shall determine whether each paper of the recall petition is properly attested and whether the petition is signed by the requisite number of registered voters. Upon completing the examination, the city secretary shall certify the results to the council. If the recall petition is deemed to lack the required number of verified registered voters, the city secretary shall set forth in detail the particulars in which it is defective, provided however that except as to the particular certified to be defective, the petition shall be deemed to be valid in all other respects.
Any discussion? Go ahead.
Section 11.04, amendment of petitions, exclusive of the 6-month time limit stated in section 11.01. A recall petition may be amended only once within 20 days after certification of its sufficiency by the city secretary by filing a supplementary petition upon additional papers signed and filed as provided in a case of an original petition. The city secretary shall, within 10 days after the supplement is filed, examine the supplementary petition, and if the amendment petition is then found to be insufficient, the city secretary shall file his certificate to that effect and notify the person filing the same, and no further action shall be taken on such insufficient petition. The findings of the insufficiency of a petition shall not prevent the filing of a new petition for the same purpose.
Go ahead, Ms. Navarro.
Section 11.05, recall election ordered. If a recall petition is certified by the city secretary to be sufficient, he shall at once submit it to the council and notify the person whose removal is sought of such action. The council shall order a recall election which shall be held in the next allowable election date under the Texas Election Code, but in no event less than 30 days after the petition has been certified. Resignation prior to the recall election shall cancel the election.
No discussion? Go ahead.
Section 11.06, ballots in the recall election. Ballots used in the recall election shall read as follows. Shall, name of the person be removed from the office of, by recall. Below such question, there shall be printed the following as to each person. For the removal of, name of person. Against the removal, name of person.
Any discussion? Go ahead. Ms.
Section
Navarro.
11.07, result of recall election. If a majority of the votes cast are against the recall of a person, he or she shall continue in office for the remainder of his or her term, but shall remain subject to the recall provisions. If a majority of such votes are for the recall of a person, he or she shall, regardless of any defect in the recall petition, be deemed removed from office.
Any discussion? No? Go ahead, Ms. Navarro.
Section 11.08, limitation on recall petitions. No recall petition shall be filed against a person within 6 months after taking office, nor within 6 months of the end of the individual's term. A person subjected to recall election and not removed may not be the subject of another recall election for 6 months.
Any discussion? Go ahead.
Section 11.09, power of initiative. The elector shall have the power to initiate any ordinance not in conflict with the Constitution or laws of the state of Texas or this charter, and to adopt or reject the same at the polls.
No discussion, go ahead, Ms. Navarro.
Section 11.10, power of referendum. The elector shall have the power to approve or reject or oppose any ordinance passed by the council. Ordinances submitted to the council by initiative petition and passed by the council shall be subject to the referendum in the same manner as other ordinances.
Any discussion? Go ahead, Ms. Navarro.
Section 11.11, form of petition. Any initiated ordinance or any ordinance subject to a referendum shall be submitted to the council in a petition signed by qualified electors of the city equal in the number to 10% of the electors qualified to vote at the time of the last regular municipal election. The petition shall be filed with the city secretary, and in the case of the referendum, the petition must be filed within 60 days after the enactment by the council of any ordinance which is subject to a referendum. The petition papers of an initiative referendum or recall shall be uniform in size and style. The initiative petition shall contain the full text of the proposed ordinance. The signatures need not all be attached to one page, but separate page shall contain a statement that is signatory personally circulated the foregoing page or paper, and that all the signatures appended thereto were made in the signatory's presence, and that the signatories believe them to be the signatures of the persons whose names they purport to be. Each signer to the 20 petitions shall sign in ink or indelible marker and shall indicate after their name their place of residence by street and number and include the person's voter registration certificate number and the date of signature.
Any discussion?
I just
Ms.
wonder,
Benavides, yes, ma'am.
I want to bring it up to discussion when I'm making the motion, but I wonder about matching the percentage of voters to those that voted in the last election. Just want to bring it for discussion for the group.
Yeah, makes sense.
That would be
Mr.
consistent.
Vella? Jack?
Can I have the honor of making this motion? I move that we change the number of required signatures from 10% of the electors qualified to 10% of the actual voters in the previous election.
We have a motion by Mr. Vella. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Jack Byam. Any discussion? No discussion. Let's go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None opposed with Mr. Killam in abstention. Let's go ahead and go to our next one.
Point of order.
Yes, sir, Mr. Valdez.
You're trying to, like the previous motion, right? Well, that's what it says here, no?
No.
He's changing it to vote.
We're doing the same thing. that we did
10%
to
of the
last one.
elected, of the electors qualified to vote. Oh, qualified, I'm sorry.
Qualified to vote.
At the last time, you're right. My bad. So noted.
With that, let's go ahead and go to 11.12. Ms. Navarro.
Section 11.12, filing, examination, and certification of petition. All petition papers of an initiative or referendum should be assembled and filed with the city secretary as one document. Within 20 days after a petition is filed, the city secretary shall determine whether the petition contains the proper statement as per section 1111 above, and whether the petition has been signed by a sufficient number of qualified electors. The city secretary shall reject as invalid or insufficient any petition which does not comply with the provisions of this charter. The city secretary shall certify the results of the examination to the council and at its next regular meeting. If the city secretary certifies that the petition is insufficient or invalid, the particular shall be set forth in the certificate. The person filing the petition shall be notified promptly of the city secretary's findings.
Any discussion? Go ahead, Ms. Navarro.
Section 11.13, amendment of petition. A petition for an initiative or a referendum may be amended at any time within 20 days after the notification of rejection or insufficiency has been sent by the city secretary. Amendments are to be made by filing supplements and additional pages signed and filed as provided in the case of an original petition. The city secretary shall, within 10 days after such amendment is filed, examine the amendment petition, and if the petition is insufficient, the city secretary shall file a certificate to that effect and notify the person filing the amendment of the findings. No further action shall be taken on such petition. The findings of the insufficiency of a petition shall not prevent the filing of a new petition for the same purpose.
Any discussion? No? Let's go ahead, Ms. Navarro. Go to our next one.
11.14, ordinance not suspended by referendum. An initiative shall not go into effect until it is approved by the city council. The certification of a referendum petition shall not suspend the ordinance which it was addressed.
Discussion. Go ahead.
Section 11.15, consideration by council, initiative petition. The council shall immediately consider an initiative petition upon its receipt from the city secretary. A proposed initiative ordinance shall be read and provision shall be made for the public hearing. The council shall take final action on the ordinance no later than 60 days after the date on which such ordinance was submitted to the council by the city secretary. B, referred ordinance. The council shall consider a referred ordinance and shall within 30 days from the receipt of the petition or referendum from the city secretary vote upon the question. Shall the ordinance be repelled?
Any discussion? Go ahead, Ms. Navarro.
Section 11.16, submission to the electors. If the council does not pass an ordinance proposed by an initiative petition or passes it in a form different from that set forth in the initiative petition, or if the council does not repeal referred ordinance, the proposed or referred ordinance shall be submitted to the electors at the next special or regular municipal election.
Any discussion? Go ahead.
Section 11.17, form of ballot for initiated and referred ordinances. Ordinances submitted to a vote of the electors in accordance with the initiative and referendum provisions of this charter shall be submitted under a ballot title which shall contain a clear, concise statement without argument of the substance of such ordinance. The ballot used shall have below the ballot title for the following proposition, one above the other in the order indicated for the ordinance and against the ordinance. Any number of ordinances may be voted on at the same election and may be submitted on the same ballot.
Any discussion? Go ahead.
Section 11.18, results of election. If a majority of the electors voting on a proposed initiative ordinance shall vote in favor thereof, it shall thereupon be an ordinance of the city. A referred ordinance which is not approved by the majority of the electors voting thereon shall thereupon be deemed repelled. If conflicting ordinances are approved by the electors at the same election, the one receiving the greatest numbers of affirmative votes shall prevail to the extent of such conflict.
No discussion? Go ahead.
Section 11.19, repelling ordinances, publication. Initiative and referendum ordinances adopted or approved by the electors shall be published and may be amended or repelled by the city council. As in the case of other ordinances, no ordinance shall adopt by the council in response to an initiative petition shall be amended or repelled by the council within 6 months of the adoption, and no ordinance repelled by the council in response to a referendum petition shall be reenacted by the council within 6 months of their repeal.
Any discussion? Let's go ahead and go to the next section.
Article 12, General Provisions, Section 12.01, Personal Financial Interest. Every officer and employee of the city shall be held to the highest standards of conduct and ethics in the performance of their duties and responsibilities to the city, and they shall not engage in any conduct or activity that is in conflict with that, has the appearance of a conflict with their duties to the city or its best interests. Conflicts with the interests of the city include, but are not limited to, financial conflicts of interest, the misuse of confidential information, and the use of city property for other than city purposes. B, any violation of this standard of conduct shall cause a forfeiture of office and or employment with the city. Any contract entered into as a result of violation of the standard of conduct or that violates the standard of conduct is voidable.
Any discussion? Go ahead.
I do have a
Yes, Dr.
question.
Reyes.
I have a question there, so I want to know how this gets enforced.
That's my question. That was what I was gonna bring up next. Yes, under the Ethics Commission, because there's no teeth to a lot of these things.
Yeah.
And that's, where we hit it. The
Right.
ethics was where you could get a violation. Now, how are you going to enforce that? Yeah.
If I may, what I
Ms.
have,
Benavides, yes.
I know that in the city of San Marcos, city council people need to file, in addition to their campaign finance reports, personal financial interest statements on a yearly basis. So
They do it here too.
We
they
do
do?
it here.
Okay,
yes.
I haven't
Oh,
seen
yes.
them on the website.
No,
They're, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Valdez.
They're
I
due
did not
April
know
the
that.
30th as per state law.
Is that once council members are in office, or? is
It's
that
candidates while they're running. At a certain point, once you're a candidate, you have to file it before the election. And also, once you become an officer or elected official, every year they file and it's the previous year. So it's personal financial statement.
Do you put them on the website?
Yeah.
No, we don't put it on the
That's what you just
website,
said.
but people are allowed to come and view them
Okay.
at their leisure.
And it's state law.
It's state law.
Got
And so I'm gonna give notice next week, provide the documentation, and they have 30 days to April the 30th to submit it to us. And if they don't, then I have to file something with the city attorney where he has to compel them to file it.
That's along with the campaign finance report.
That's in, yeah, it's only different. No, it's not in lieu
But it's
of.
at the same time though. isn't it?
Oh, I'm sorry, why did you say Lou? Just, yeah, it's separate and apart, is what you're trying to say.
Campaign finance reports, they're due by officers, and during elections, there are different time schedules, but every January 15th, they're due, and they're also due every July 15th.
Is it July?
And then every year, the personal financial statements are due April 30th. And the personal financial are everything from prior year.
Does failure, prior to an election, does failure to submit any of this documentation keep you off a ballot?
It doesn't keep you off the ballot, but I want to say that the city attorney can prosecute for, you tell me I'm off, but
But it
for the
doesn't,
personal financial statement.
You
But it
can get
doesn't-
sanctioned by the state ethics commission as well.
Yeah,
okay,
also.
so the state will come in also.
I mean, if somebody reports you, yeah, the state will come in, they'll drag you in front of the commission.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, so there's no.
Dr. Reyes, yes, ma'am.
So there's-
And again, I don't mean to, I just have to read to the record so that they know whose voice that was. That's you,
I
Dr.
just
Reyes.
wanted to know if then there's no enforcement for this.
And the ethics does have that,
Through the
provi-
ethics?
for
Oh,
that
thank
particular
you.
provision, but that's the only one that it.
For
it
B or A?
regulates. For the prohibited financial interest, the personal
Ah.
financial interest, yes. All of that.
Thank you.
We're okay, then let's go to our next one.
Section 12.02, Ethics Commission. The City Council recommends adopt a code of ethics and establish an ethics commission to review and recommend standards of conduct not inconsistent with the charter and with the code of ethics, and to investigate all allegations of violation of the code. The Ethics Commission shall consist of 9 members. The mayor and each member of the City Council shall nominate 1 member of the commission. Each nominee must be appointed by a majority of a quorum of the City Council, but in no event by less than the affirmative vote of 4 council members. The term of the commission member shall be the term of the office holder who made the nomination. Upon vacancy, subsequent nominations shall be by the mayor for majoral appointments or the council member of the respective district corresponding to the original appointment.
Any discussion?
Well, going back to the point,
Christina?
there is a lot of things in here that are not enforceable, and I know that those have been encountered in the past. And it was always suggested maybe the Ethics Commission could be able to put it in this, that they enforce everything in the charter as well.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding.
Because there's a lot of like interference with administration, there's just countless provisions in the charter that
You cannot
simply don't have
micromanage.
any relief. If you don't follow it, what is the
What's the
repercussion?
consequence?
Right,
Yeah.
but there are a couple of things in the ethics code that do apply some of these provisions, so it just makes sense that everything that's not otherwise covered by state law or some other mechanism would be enforced through the Ethics Commission.
Got it.
Is that your motion?
Yes, I make that motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, well, any discussion? Additional discussion? Yes, sir, Mr. Carranco.
I really like that proposal. I think it's necessary here. But if you look at the 12.03, of course, there's also whose decision on the matter brought shall be final. I don't think that's necessarily what we want on the Ethics Commission, because council should have some sort of say on that. They are the ones who, presumably something like this is going to come to their attention. There may be some politics played. But I'm wondering if,
That's true, because you might want to go against, or it could be a councilman that's in violation, so it's the ethics that's going to call him on it and say, you broke, that was a private.
And I don't know why it says that in 12.03 that the decision's final. I don't know what that means, because they're not final. I mean, they both ethics decisions and civil service decisions are not final. They go to district court and they have been decided at district court. So they're the ones, and that's why it's in here, so that there's an independent body. I don't know that a lot of these provisions apply to council members, so it would be difficult to have them.
Well, we have a motion, we have a second, there was, further discussion. Mr. Vela, did you want some more discussion? Yes, sir.
A question.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Hale, what, you said decisions go to district court. Is the Ethics Commission allowed to levy any type of penalty, or would that fall on in the review of the district court?
The ones that have been more like,
Take
there has been
classes,
fines,
do
there has been
this.
things like fines, yes.
There has
You
been.
can't be a
So
lobbyist.
the commission can do that?
Yes, oh,
Is
fines,
there-
and they can also recommend to the Civil Service Commission, like, some kind of disciplinary action
Okay.
as well, which is usually taken into account.
Any other discussion?
I'm
Yes,
just,
Ms. Benavides.
I'm looking at the model city charter from the National Civic League, and there's like some recommendations on, to Ms. Hill's point, what are the options that the Ethics Commission can take, and some of that is hiring independent counsel, imposing their own fees, referring cases to prosecution. So I wonder if the language here is strong enough to indicate that that's within the jurisdiction of the Ethics Commission, or if we need to put something with more grounds for taking those actions.
And it does have that option, but we do have a motion, I'm not gonna allow that to go out. Yes, sir.
Just for your information, council has moved for the Ethics Commission to review its rules, and that's one of the issues, is to put more teeth for the enforcement of the ethics code, just so, for your information.
Sorry, one more time. I don't know that I caught that.
Council has moved for the Ethics Commission to review its code similarly to what you're doing with the charter, and to most likely put some more teeth into its enforcement rules.
Well, good, so they don't have
But
any
we're
problem with us
addressing
doing
that in this motion right here and that second, unless we're calling for modification. And if not, and no other discussion,
Mr. Chairman, who seconded? I'm sorry.
Mr. Vela, the motion was from Ms. Hale, and Mr. Vela seconded. Now I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? None opposed, with Mr. Killiman abstention. With that, we're ready for our next one.
Section 12.03, Civil Service Commission. The City Council shall establish a Civil Service Commission for employees of city other than its firefighters and police officers whose decision on matters brought before it shall be final. Furthermore, the functions, composition, and power shall be determined by ordinance. The commission shall consist of 9 members. The mayor and each member of the City Council shall nominate 1 member of the commission. Each nominee must be appointed by the majority of the quorum of the City Council, but in no event by less than the affirmative vote of 4 council members. The term of the commission member shall be for the term of the office holder who made the nomination. Upon vacancy, subsequent nomination shall be by the mayor for major appointments for this council member of their respective district corresponding to the original appointment.
Okay. I think when they say shall be final, it's for administrative purposes. So before you go to federal court, you have to exhaust all your administrative remedies. So I think that's why they say shall be final, even though what Ms. Hale says is correct. You can render your decision, I'm going across the street to district court or federal court, and we'll see what they have to say on it. So I think it's just an administrative, that you've now terminated all the administrative remedies would be my understanding.
This is a different commission than the Ethics Commission, correct?
Yes, yes.
What is its purpose?
Civil service,
Yeah.
to protect the employees, and it's not the department heads, that's why you never, Jack, want to become a department. As long as you stay one level down, I have civil service protection, you're not at will, that's the,
I see. So it represents the interests of the employees of the city.
yes.
Got it.
That they have a fair tribunal, that it was applied equally the law to them, that there was no one, well, why did you do it for him and not for Jack, or, you know, you bring those type of arguments in. With that, we have any other discussion? Let's go ahead and go to the next one, Ms. Navarro.
Section 12.04, nepotism. No person related within the second degree by by affinity or within the third degree by consanguinity to the mayor, any council member, any elected city official, city manager, or member of the city board or commission shall be appointed to any office, position, clerkship, or other position within the city. This provision shall not apply, however, to any person who shall have been continuously employed by the city for a period of two years or more prior to the election of the mayor, council member, or elected official, or to the appointment of the city manager or member of a board or commission related to such appointee in the prohibited degree.
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Hale, and then, we have Jack Ward.
And I know this has been a problem in the past, the logic behind the board and commission. Like, why can't someone be hired who's related to board and commission? I don't know if that makes much sense. Or I don't know what the logic of what you all think.
I really don't know. I guess let's try to say that board could have influence, but.
And that makes sense, but not.
But not when it's appointed and then
Right.
you're gonna see that, so I would tend to agree. Jack, you had a,
Yeah, just a thought. 2 years seems like a long time. I'm thinking of those who are working for the city and someone else that is characterized by one of these relations to them comes to occupy, or is likely to occupy, a position with the city. Does that mean if they haven't worked for 2 years, they have to resign?
if you haven't
if-
worked for
if-
two, okay.
Well, that's the language of the law. It doesn't apply if you've worked for the city for a period of 2 years. So if I'm working for the city as
And the
a
mentality is that you were already there before you ran for office or created that, so that person was there, that's okay, it's the opposite. We
Right.
don't want you to take office, oh, now let me bring my family.
Exactly, that's right. So why is even this, this idea,
I get you.
If I'm working as a janitor for the city and my son runs for council, and I've been doing it for a year and a half, this gets flagged as a kind of improper, this gets flagged as nepotism. This is the section on nepotism.
Yeah.
But I've already been. Has the city ever had an experience like this, or has this ever come up?
It has come
Yes.
up.
Oh, okay. What was the context, or
Well, you're someone who's already working, then
so what happens in that case?
in that case, they remain, but we've had a recent, situation was a flip. They used to work together, but now the person's applying and they have someone that, is a relative working in that department, they cannot qualify to have
Okay.
that position.
So that makes sense. Once you're already there, relatives coming in or nepotistic relationships coming in. But what about this language of someone who's already employed by the city?
Is it review by situation? Is it,
Yes,
so you don't follow this to the letter of,
yes.
you do follow it?
I enforce it, yes.
Okay,
Like I
so
said, I've
then
enforced
the
it,
issue he's bringing up
Yes,
is
yes.
valid.
yes. So,
Well, or if it's
you're-
arbitrary, 2 years, is it 18 months, it's okay,
Yeah.
That's what, right, Jack? That was looking at.
2 years seems like a long time. You could be working for the city in good faith, and then one of your relatives wants to get involved in an unrelated position, right?
I think 6 months is enough. After that, and once you get closer to the election and people start knowing who's gonna want or who won, and they're taking their time to take their oath of office or whatever the case may be, then I think 6 months is
Does
okay.
anyone know where
A
this
year is
came
fine
from?
too.
I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah.
What's the objection? I'm sorry.
What's my objection?
Yes.
The 2 years.
The 2 year.
Yes, I understand the 2 years, but
This is what I think we're trying to combat. Henry's gonna become the mayor. Everyone knows he's gonna become the mayor. I'm his cousin or whatever, so you guys better hire me, cause when my
Oh,
cousin
okay.
comes in. So
So
I
maybe
guess the thing is that there's 2 years distant where,
Yeah.
yeah, he may or may not make
Maybe
mayor.
the 2 year mark
So
sets
that's-
the limit of election.
He can keep
to-
Yeah, you're talking about, it's half the
Once you
term,
announce,
Dr.
yeah,
Reyes, where
okay.
they seem like they're looking at.
I see.
So that would be,
So we don't want people anticipating the future election
Right.
of someone and
in Henry
getting in
Ty, he
before.
will be mayor. I
Negotiating.
want you to think about it, Jack.
Because you didn't bring them in after the fact.
Right.
It happens, it happens.
I mean,
So is 2 year, I understand the logic of the, I understand it's.
And we heard
reasonableness
6
there.
months, so is there another number that we would like to talk about? Yes, sir, Mr. Carranco.
That makes sense for 2 years.
You know, there is an issue of nepotism, and we know there's always been an issue of nepotism in our community in some way. And perhaps on purpose, perhaps by accident, regardless, the issue does persist. It's also unjust to, let's say, my third cousin, who may be working for the city, particularly if I'm serving on a appointed commission, which I'm doing as good faith as a citizen. It would be unfair to my third cousin, who is a secretary
And
in.
Ms. Hale brought up that point too. You're giving a lot of power to a commission that.
So, to that point, perhaps again, we can split the baby. If it's 6 months, seems to be an awfully, seems to be awfully close for an election. And I think in this case, like if a mayoral election seems to be fairly significant. And a commission seems fairly, all commissions are important to the city. But a commission seems to carry less gravity in certain scenarios. I'm going to make a suggestion that and I'll make a motion on this, to amend the 2-year period to a 9-month period. 6 months seems to be close enough to election that it may be,
It's a human gestation, so yeah.
that it stings, but 9 months is also sufficient amount of time for someone to be working for a place, at least in my experience with employee. By 9 months, you tend to know if you have a good employer or you don't.
We have a motion by Mr. Carranco. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Vela. Right? Did I call it right? And any discussions
Yes,
or?
I would.
Yes, Ms. Hale.
I would just ask, or maybe we could always revisit if we vote, just that we check with the state nepotism statute.
That we're not in violation, that we're
Because, yes,
staying.
I know that there's one, and it applies to us as well, so there may be regulations
We,
there.
we could maybe suggest a modification pending
Pending, yes.
any violation of.
Very happy to make that amendment, pending
It's a good
state
process.
revision.
Okay. Yes, I saw Mr. Valdez here before the motion. Well, Mr. Valdez, if you would.
I was gonna say, you can also consider maybe excluding all boards that don't have decision-making, powers, because I think it's limited to maybe 4 or 5. Like planning and zoning makes decisions.
Yeah.
Board of Adjustments makes decisions.
They all make
The ethics, not all of them.
Tree naming, the commission has,
And
you know, I'm just.
You all are making decisions, but it's a recommendation to council.
I got you. I
So
see
they don't
the difference.
independently, council doesn't review planning and zoning for, plats, right?
That's a very good point.
Or
And so if you want to separate it, because there's a lot of committees, like 30 of them.
Right.
But the ones that have powers, if that's, I don't know what we'd call it, but maybe consider that. That's one. And I was gonna say, it's also not fair, like if I've been employed for a year and I hate my cousin.
I'm gonna run
Now
just
he's
so.
running for office, I
get
could
rid
care
of you.
less if he wins.
Yeah.
And he wins, now I'm gonna be penalized. I'm gonna get fired because he just won. I'm just saying that.
Don't think I won't do it, Jose, too. Just
I know you'd run, right?
just to show my cousin,
Despite,
just to
anyways,
teach you.
just a consideration.
And then renounce after they read. Okay. All right, well, we,
9 months. Right.
yes, we have a motion and we have a second. No further discussion. Let's go ahead and call for
Wait,
the.
I'm
Yes, sir,
sorry.
Mr. Suni, I'm sorry.
There's just a question that was
Of
raised.
course.
Okay, that's right.
It's under discussion, right?
Yes, we're still under discussion. I just want to review something. If you give me a second.
Of course, Mr. Suene.
Yeah, appointed.
And only appointed, so that narrows it.
Oh, no, you're hired,
That counts as an appointment?
yes,
Okay,
right?
that's how I took
Hire-
it.
I'm sorry, so just for clarification, the word, at the bottom of page 42, shall be appointed to any office position. Appointed equals, in this case, hired, right? You're being selected for the position, so it's a hired position as well. It's not necessarily in the layman's term, when we hear appointed, you're appointed to this, and, you know, it has no teeth to it. But appointed here in this case means a position or a clerkship, you're hiring them for that, right?
Sounds right.
Okay, yeah, so it's higher.
That's how a lawyer would interpret that?
And that's also, I know it's defined in that same statute.
Okay.
Which is so.
So,
Got
does
it.
that answer the question?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you for
No,
indulging.
no, not at all,
Thank you
not
for
at all.
indulging me.
We're not in a hurry, we want to do it right. We have a motion, we have it second, we have a call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
There is one point to Mr. Vallis's,
And we could address it with an additional motion if you want to regarding what boards or commissions, Mr.
I think
Carrasco?
that's probably necessary in
And
this
for the
case.
record, Mr. Killam, abstention. I'm sorry, go ahead.
But Mr. Salvinier, you were about to mention something, I'm sorry. So in that case, I'd also like to make a second motion that the commission, language regarding commissions here, with consultation from the city attorney and with
Chief Secretary.
city secretary,
Assistant City Manager.
and subject to revision from the Texas State, the state of Texas, I'd like to make a motion that we, that the committee language be rewritten to reflect any commission with decision-making power,
Decision-making authority.
authority.
Second.
All right, we have, any discussion? For the record, we have the motion by Mr. Carranco, second by Mr. Suede. Did I call it correct? No other discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? None opposed with Mr. Killam abstention. And we're ready for our next one, Ms. Navarro, 12.5.
Section 12.05, oath of office. Every person elected or appointed to any office in the city shall, before assuming the duties of the office, take and subscribe to the oath of office and the denial of bribery statement prescribed by the state constitution and law.
Any discussion? Go ahead.
Section 12.06, prohibitions. Section A, activities prohibited. 1, no person shall be appointed to or removed from or in any way favored or discriminated against with respect to any city position or appointive city administrative office before race, gender, age, disability, political or religious opinions or affiliations. Number 2, no person shall willfully make any false statement, certificate, mark, rating, or report in regards to any test, certification, or appointment under the personnel provisions of this charter or the rules and regulations made thereunder, or in any matter commit or attempt to commit any fraud, preventing the impartial execution of such provisions, rules, and regulations. 3, no person who seeks appointment or promotion with respect to any city position or appointive city administrative office shall directly or indirectly give, render, or pay any money, service, or other valuable thing to any person in connection with his or her test, appointment, proposed appointment, promotion, or proposed promotion. 4, no person, including city employees, shall knowingly or willfully solicit or assist in soliciting any assessment, subscription, or contribution for any political party or political purpose to be used in conjunction with any city election from any city employee. 5, no city employee shall knowingly or willfully make, solicit, or receive any contribution to the campaign funds of any political party or committee to be used in a city election, or to campaign funds to be used in support or for opposition to a candidate for election to city office or city ballot issue, with the exception of members of council and the mayor. No employee or office of the city shall in any way participate in political activity of any nature while on duty in uniform or using city resources except for that required by the employee election procedure for appointments of members of the Civil Service Commission, with the exception only of the city manager, any deputy city manager, any assistant city manager, the city secretary, all of the staff of the city secretary, all other officers and employees of the city of Laredo may participate in political activity, provided that no coercion or retaliation concerning political activity shall be allowed. None of the following: the city manager, any deputy city manager, any assistant city manager, the city secretary, and all of the staff of the city secretary shall at any time take part in any political activity on city-related issues except to provide factual information at the direction of the city manager, to express their own opinions privately, and to cast their votes. 6, any elected or appointed official or city employee who negligently or intentionally loses, damages, or injures records, documents, or property of the city must reimburse the city for such losses. 7, no payment shall be made or obligation incurred against any allotment or appropriation except in accordance with the appropriations duly made, and unless the city manager or his designee first certifies that there is sufficient unencumbered balance in such allotment and appropriation, and that sufficient funds therefrom are or will be available to cover the claim or meet the obligation when it becomes due and payable. B, penalties. The city council shall enact such ordinance and ordinances as it deems necessary to enforce this section, and prescribing a fine for any violation. Any person finally convicted of a violation of any such ordinance shall be ineligible for the period of 5 years thereafter to hold any city office or position. If such person is an officer or employee of the city, they shall immediately forfeit the office or position.
Any discussion? Go ahead.
Section 12.07, Charter Amendment. Amendments to this charter may be framed if submitted to the voters of the city in the manner provided by Chapter 9 of the Local Government Code of Texas, as now or hereafter amended.
No discussion? Go ahead, Ms. Navarro.
Section 12.08, separability. In any provision of this charter is held invalid. The other provisions of the charter shall not be affected hereby. If the application of the charter or any of its provisions to any person or circumstances is held invalid, the application of the charter and its provisions to other persons or circumstances shall not be affected thereby.
Any discussion? Go ahead.
Section 12.09, Charter Revision Commission, Charter Amendment. At least every 10 years, but not more often than every 2 years, the City Council shall appoint a City Charter Revision Commission to make recommendations to the City Council for amendment or amendments to said charter. The commission shall consist of 9 members. The mayor and each member of the City Council shall nominate 1 member of the commission. The mayor and each council member shall nominate 1 member of, am I reading the same thing? Yes. Subject to the confirmation by the affirmative vote of at least 5 council members and 4 council members and the mayor.
Any discussion? No discussion? Mr. Valdez?
That's it for today. We'll start revisiting all the agenda.
Do we know when we're gonna meet next? Do we have a hard date?
Is that April 16th?
April 16th.
Yeah.
So, because that takes care of Mr. Souvenir, right? You'll be with us for
For that one.
Yes, and I appreciate your indulging me for this particular
course,
meeting.
no.
And I'm available the next 2 scheduled meetings for sure. What, said April 16th, did we say?
Yeah, April 16th. And then we'll
Yeah.
try to have one between April 16th and the following regular. We'll try to have something in between, so we can start addressing more fast in some of the
and we
issues.
go back to reopen stuff
We
like
might
that.
have more discussion on revisiting items,
Excellent.
So,
if we're all in agreement.
Yes, sir. Any other discussion? Anyone want to make any comments? And if not, yes, sir, Jack.
I would like to motion that we excuse Mr. Killam for the.
We have
for
a
his
motion
absence.
to excuse Mr. Killen from his presence.
I remember him stating that he really wanted to be here, so something pressing must have kept him for tonight.
We had the motion. I'm gonna jump you because I heard Ms. Hale right here. I heard it. Any discussion? If no discussion, let's call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against? No, with Mr. Killivan, et cetera, but he's now been excused, so with his excuse abstention. Yes, sir.
it's, all right.
Mr. Souvenir.
I'd like to make a recommendation again, and I'm totally selfishly making this recommendation
sir.
based on my travel calendar. If we do meet before we said sometime between the next April meeting and the May meeting, anywhere between the 1st and the 10th work ideally for my calendar. I'm not traveling. So, in May 1st through May 10th.
Sorry, if I can,
We're looking at the 21st of May for the,
there we go.
right?
I'm sorry?
For the regular scheduled one to be in May the 21st,
I-
are you saying
I thought it was-
the first and the
I thought it was, I'm sorry to try, I thought they were Thursdays. The reason this was put on
No.
a Tuesday was it was changed for
Tuesdays.
me.
It's always been Tuesdays.
Yeah.
I think we had one Thursday only because
I'll
of
go forget you
council
is
meeting.
bit of you, so make
Got
sure you have, Okay, no, Ms. Benavides, let's go make a comment. Yes, ma'am.
I was just gonna say that I am not here May 7th through 11th, but that may not matter based on what he said.
Right.
No, now you have to share why. Now we need to know where you're going. Who are you going with? Where are you? Yeah, no, that's fine.
So, based on what was commented, maybe we can target the first, second, or third.
Yes.
We'll look at that. We'll let
Excellent.
everybody know.
And I'll be out May 21st.
No, now you have to share. You know the rules. Why are you, where are you going,
I
sir?
think I'm gone.
No, we need to know. I want to know, Mr.
Yeah,
I don't
send me
go
the
any
plane ticket.
place, so I need to know. You all live
I mean,
near
I'll just say
mine.
this way, I might say this, I'm not canceling it.
That's fine.
We can figure it out next meeting.
Absolutely. I'll entertain,
Let's ask.
with that, I'll entertain any motions to,
When is the April meeting?
April 6th.
16.
April 16th.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, perfect.
April 16th.
I would like, one more thing. Now that we've finished our preliminary,
agenda?
through the whole entire charter, I'm wondering if it's possible for next meeting we could have a list of the things that we plan to discuss
Already took.
and the active, that's something
We'll provide that for you.
that'd be great.
Ahead of time.
Okay, great. Because then I can review those.
For your
things.
review.
Excellent idea. Yes, sir, Mr. Carranco.
I would like to say, as we pass this halfway mark, or perhaps a little past that, I just want to thank the staff for their courtesies in dealing with us and us going all over the place. And compliment you too, Boyer. You've done a wonderful job in helping us guide.
Quite complimented. Yeah,
through
the
this
staff has
wilderness.
been amazing. Ms. Navarro always tells she's the most valuable player.
Real.
She gives up her throat, her vocal cords for us all the time.
And as far as, and I don't speak for Zone, but I want to thank you all for liking Chick-fil-A.
Oh,
If you don't, thanks for not saying it.
that goes without saying. What's wrong?
Well, we had a choice.
Chick-fil-A chips, so just,
That's funny. I'll entertain any motions if there's nothing
To
else.
adjourn?
Yes,
Second.
we have Mr. Vela's motion. We have a second by Andrew. No discussion. Call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None opposed. Let the record reflect. It is 8:21 and we are done.
Yeah, nice to meet you.